All right, cool. So, as I said, we are hanging out on the SMP. We are currently heading over to spawn. The majority of us are going to be heading over to the Equinox celebration area together. I would also like to apologize for any lag that we have today. The like school Wi-Fi has been really laggy and glitchy all week. They're still trying to fix it. They don't know really what's going on. It usually happens after breaks, which we just had our break, our spring break, this past week. But we don't really know what's going on because usually this doesn't happen after like a short break. It usually happens after like summer break, things along those lines. So yeah, we don't really know what's going on. Hi! Hello! But yeah, we're all getting together at spawn, and then we're gonna head to, the spring equinox little area together. So, let's see. Ray's on his way. I don't know where Levi is. I don't know how many people are going to be here together. We have quite a few people on currently. I'm trying to remember. I think Funny said that they might be joining later. I don't know approximately how many members we're going to be. Hi, Blitz. I see you over there. Sup? Okay, I don't see you then. I'm gonna look the other way. Pretend I don't see you.
Scarlet was Elias, come here 1 second.
Yeah.
Scoot asked me to do this.
Oh, hi guys.
What the heck? Hi.
You're the only one that doesn't get poisoned.
Hello.
Oh wait, oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Hello.
I took back because I quit everything.
Someone's
I can't hear.
echoing
Whoa,
clean.
that's a lot of food.
I bring fish.
Oh damn! I should have brought my stuff with me. I just
Whoa.
left it at home.
Oh, who pushed me?
I brought all my stuff with me.
But, like,
I bring a
I
lot
have
of
stuff
food.
planned.
Here, you can have your
I
fish
have
back.
something planned, but you
thank
have to
you.
come to my place.
Ow.
When we're over in the celebration area, I have something
It's a
to put
pin
down that's
cushion.
gonna be beautiful.
Oh wait,
Definitely
actually,
not
I'm gonna
a
go
me,
get my
I
stuff. I'll be
swear.
right back.
I forget sometimes that you're that tall.
I am the tallest member of the SMP. People have to look up to me, literally.
Literally.
Am I a
Yeah.
role model? Fuck no.
No,
But they do look up to me.
Captain, I like your house castle thingy over there.
Thank you. Did you see the new additions over there?
I haven't seen it in a while.
Oh jeez. You gotta slow down.
Whoa, what's this over here?
Goes so fast. I can't fly.
What is this? Is this Italy?
It's Italy adjacent. Oh.
We keep running into stuff. We're not very good at using the elytra.
Oh, this is pretty.
It's beautiful, Cap.
I got my farms, my windmill that's got all of my crops inside. I have a little Adaloc pond.
Have you ever?
Got a little Adaloc. I can't fucking say that word today.
Axolotl.
That's the third time today that I've tried to say that word and it hasn't come out right.
Is this your portal?
Yeah, my portal.
Nice.
And then I have a little enchantment area over here.
Oh, that's cool. My little tree house.
Yeah.
This is really pretty.
Treezy.
Treesy. Oh, and then I have my foxes over here. My original fox, Dirty, died.
Oh no, what happened?
Yeah. We actually don't, we theorize that he died. Because I made this pen, but there were gaps over here that I didn't know about. And we think that he escaped and there was initially a lava pool over here that I told Levi it was all blocked up, like it was all cooled, and I was like, yeah, Levi, you can dig up the obsidian, go ahead. And so some of it had been like reopened. Yeah, so we think that Dirty got into it and died.
This is the wall we did in Stoneworks.
Oh really?
Yeah. You were on Stoneworks once upon a time, weren't you?
Yeah.
We did, like, the same
in the early days.
In the early days, we did the same wall design way back then.
I got my allays. Some of them are named in there.
We have that blaze rod farm, don't we, in the nether?
We have
yeah.
We have a blaze farm and we have a froglight farm. Froglight farm is we took the nether roof that way to go to the stuff.
Yeah. This is really cool.
Thank you. I think it looks gorgeous
Remember when
too.
I made travel 20,000 blocks in the nether, but it was actually only like 2,000.
Yeah.
I gave you the overworld coordinates.
Yeah, and I was like, surely I should be here now. You're like, no, it took me a while to get there. I'm like, babe, I've been running for like half an hour. Like, surely. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you're going the wrong way. I was like, fuck, dude. And I run slow as it is as an undead, so it just took me ages. Where did she go?
She just flew off that way.
Oh, there she is. So majestic.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back.
Oh, an Enderman stealing your block.
They always do that, and then they leave a single block of clay, you bastard. No, fuck you. Get out of here. I don't even have anything to hit you with. Get out of here, motherfucker.
Oh.
What? Oh.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Really? Oh, there it is. Stop dodging my shit. Wait. Am I about to die? Oh, jeez. I guess you can't.
Oh, motherfucker. Guarantee he did this. Get out of here. Bastard bitch.
Oh, they're like the balloons.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, jeez, what the hell happened there? Is that you? Did you do that?
You were swimming on the...
That was really weird. Uh-oh.
No, get in here, funny, get in here. Uh-oh.
Phantom.
Oh, thank God. Hello, we're back.
August. Okay. Is everybody here? I gotta give out my presents.
Presents?
Okay. Here.
Oh.
Here's some cookies. Here's some cookies. Here's some cookies. Here's some cookies.
Is there another one?
Here's some cookies.
Yum, 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 yum.
Don't know who I didn't get yet, but I counted them out. Here's some cookies.
Who didn't get any cookies?
Who didn't get cookies?
Who didn't get cookies?
I didn't get cookies.
I got cookies, don't give
I
them
can't
me.
eat cookies though.
I can't eat cookies either. There's a bunch of food in here for everyone.
Oh yeah, you could share. That's okay.
I made sure
You
carnivores and vegetarians could eat from here. I couldn't get.
Oh, I fucking hate carnivores. They don't get
Ow!
cookies.
Ray, I got some here for you. I have vegetables, meats, nectars, and yeah.
Nectars?
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, like honey.
Nectar these nuts.
Oh, I was like, nectar. Oh.
Wait, guys, can I tell a story? Can I tell a story? Can I tell a story?
Yes, story time, story time, story time.
Okay, so for those that don't
Oh, there's
know,
a spider.
don't die.
Blitz run. Blitz run.
It's daytime. It should be. Oh, if you don't attack it during daytime,
It was
it's
attacking,
not
though, I
possible.
Yeah, it was attacking.
Yeah, it was fine.
Blitz didn't even do anything either. Had their back turned and everything.
Wait, Tess, before we do story time, I have a very funny painting.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm ready.
uh,
We're all just staring.
Sorry, I have to.
Anticipation.
Oh my.
Oh,
Oh.
Nice.
Oh, I got
Nice.
off.
I like
Yep,
it.
sounds about right.
Picasso. Okay, ready for my story. So for those that don't
Damn,
know,
that was reach.
I'm a film major.
Nuh-uh.
I make what the fuck? I make movies. So right now I'm doing my senior thesis, and I'm currently in the casting process for it. So today I got one of my first auditions from someone, and my script.
Whoa,
is
auditions? This is serious.
right.
Yeah.
I don't pay them or anything, but you know. But so my script is not very word
That
heavy.
cracking
It
your
doesn't
screen
have many lines. So what I just sent them was I want to see expression, I want to whatever. Just say this and then ad lib a bit. So this person sent in the audition, and the only thing they say, so they go, whatever, my name is blah blah, and I'll be auditioning for Taylor. And then they go, wait, fuck, I gotta remember. Hold on. Oh, so hold on. So they go. So then I said, business major. I hardly know her. That was it. That was the entire audition.
I feel. That's me as a theater kid.
Yep, that was it. And I honestly want to cast it just because it was funny.
Listen, if you were going for a funny vibe, they gave
Not
you
at
the
all.
funny
It's a
vibe.
very serious short film, but I think
Ow.
I don't care. 'Cause
Hello,
it's fun.
Lockpick.
Damn, something broke.
I'm not eating Funyuns in real life. You have no proof.
It's okay. I was eating.
Oh my.
Oh,
Well-
shit.
Wow.
Well, that marks the first
What?
death today.
I mean,
Can it?
yeah.
What the
So
heck?
Let's make sure
I'm so sorry, Queen.
other stuff doesn't
How did
despawn.
that
I'm gonna
happen?
put it into their chest, whatever I can.
Who has armor on that won't die with one arrow? One arrow? I don't know.
To the sky. Whee!
What do we have planned? Cause I
Ow!
have something I want
Oh,
to do,
fuck!
but I don't know what order.
Um,
I don't have armor
everything's
on.
pretty loosely planned. It's literally just like whenever sparks are fancy.
Do you
Like
wanna
I've
do
got the
my
mini
thing
games.
first?
Yeah, because
Mine
everything
kinda-
else is in the same area. So
Okay. Yeah, mine's not like a game or anything. It'll be quick.
I'm going.
Oh, I
Okay.
forget you live over
Onions.
there. I was
Where's
like,
my
what-
shit?
Yeah.
Shit.
like we've got the little mini games and
I
stuff
put
that I've got
your
set up.
armor into your chest,
But that's
Queen.
about it. Like it's
Yeah.
literally just everyone fucking around today
Okay.
and just having a good time.
Let me
So
do mine first because it's really quick.
okay.
That's
Yep.
yeah.
In the name of the Equinox.
Is everyone here?
I'm missing my
Everybody.
hoe.
Everybody but Funny, I
What?
think.
I'm missing my hoe.
But
Diamond
I don't know
hoe.
how long it's gonna take for Funny to get here.
Oh no.
Did
Oh,
they
I
say
have
we
it.
were
have
gonna
no
be
idea.
late? I
Oh.
didn't read.
Funny just hopped in my chat a couple minutes ago and said that they were coming.
Oh, okay. So we can.
Anyone want to try some stew?
Oh, funny just said
Mystery
no. MC keeps crashing.
Is it mystery stew?
Perfect.
We're playing roulette.
Aww, I want some.
It's just weakness.
Oh my gosh, wait.
Okay.
I want
Damn
some.
chicken
Do you have
is
more?
this?
Chicken! Chicken! Yummy.
Bibbin!
I don't know.
You want to try?
Ow, why am I doing
Sorry.
I just
Sorry, my
witnessed
sword
a
had too high of a range.
travesty!
Who's Travis?
He's
Don't
this one
say
guy
that!
from a different Minecraft YouTuber series a while ago.
Don't say that.
Oh,
It's sad.
You're on your amnesia arc.
truly. Who's Travis? What's a Travis?
Oh, I wanted to talk to you. You should make some art of us
Sure.
and Travis.
I should.
You should make art, period.
That'd be-
I
that'd
hung
be
up our
adorable.
painting.
Aw.
Shut the fuck up! I hung up our painting of the jungle that you made.
Ooh.
The
Nice.
of the four of us with
Ooh,
Ven.
cute.
Yeah, I saw that. Right now, all I have is my
Ah!
self-portrait. My laptop key's turned off, and I'm upset.
That's
What
right.
The
happens
lights
to my
are
glowing
off.
brain?
Funny!
Funny!
Hey, Funny, I'll be paying you a bit.
Not funny.
Funny,
ha
Funny,
ha.
Funny has to get
Weird.
paid. I have to pay Funny.
I love that
I'm stealing-
phrase. That's my favorite phrase.
Thank you. I invented it.
No, you didn't.
Okay,
I
my
don't
keys
think
are
you have
back
any
on.
proof that
I'm
I
I'm happy
didn't.
again.
I feel like I probably
I
do
need my dream in my
somewhere.
life.
No.
Okay.
Oh, hold
Who
on.
just
I'll be right back. I
dove
have
bomb
something
over here? That
specifically
was
for
so
Funny I need to
cool.
I tried
I
to shoot
pivoted
him
over
while I
there.
was falling. but
that
no.
That was so sick. It looked like something out of a movie. I just look over and it was just like a straight down dive with your fucking like umbrella.
Why are there so many spyglasses?
I don't
Sight.
know. I wonder why.
I'm gonna get
I
a
don't
new
want any more. I have
get a new
4.
biome.
Huh?
There's not any left, damn it.
Ooh.
There's 3.
I have all the spyglasses.
Oh, who hit me?
No.
To an
Uh-oh.
I love geodes.
I'm dual wielding
Oh, no.
spyglasses.
I'm
It's
trying.
raining.
Someone picked up his
What's a Travis?
writing.
chest plate.
This is how someone would lure me into their van.
Why does Elias have
Getting
so much
couple
shit in his
shenanigans
inventory?
over there.
He's like carrying around all of our supplies.
Queen!
I have Elias.
Glitter.
Glitter.
Here,
Hey.
Scarlet.
I was on a stare down with Blitz.
I don't want these anymore. Ugh.
Why are you giving
Okay.
me this?
I have too much shit.
Since we're all here, do we want to do the Levi thing now?
Okay.
What's
Yeah,
the-
dude,
Of
I have
course.
I have a
Hey.
surprise. I have a surprise.
I can't.
Wait. What? Okay, let's go my place. Follow the leader.
Let me bring some.
Lieber. I can't get in. I love that I was one of the first people
Gotta
in.
bring Elias some meat. I'll be back.
I've got meat for him.
Oh, okay. I don't know if he can make it all the way over here.
Where is it?
He usually runs out as we're walking.
Where'd he go?
Oh, here's Funny.
Hello?
Funny, go
Hi, Funny.
go the way we
Hi-
came from,
Hi, Scarlet. Okay.
towards Levi's.
Meat.
Hello.
Meat.
Thank you.
I am the meat man, full of meat. Can meat man? Yes, meat can. Does the meat man can? Can the meat man? Meat can. Meat man, meat can.
Hi, meats.
I can barely hear Funny. There we go.
That's not very
So
funny.
tall.
Alright, shut up.
Yeah, August
We're
made
back.
me
But
Take
the
out your
meat
knees.
can. Can
Ow.
the meat
Oh,
Why
man?
can you
Oh, I
poison
forgot
me?
that was
Meat,
poison.
meat, the
I
meat
forgot that was
man.
poison. Am I meant to take off my
Meat
armor?
can, meat
Wait.
man.
Wait.
just-
You
Meat
have to
I
follow
can't
me.
take
can,
poison
meat
damage
man.
normally. I don't. How did you do that?
Funny's a bee.
Ah.
Bzz.
Yeah, but I don't
There's
take
a
poison
bee?
damage.
Bees, bees are just.
Give me more than that. I have more than
No.
that.
But
I only have
can the
30.
meat man?
Yeah, I give you half
Oh,
of mine.
we have everyone. Let's go.
Meat man can.
Come.
I will poison all of you.
I love watching the train
Come.
of big, like, little dots on the map.
Come.
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 Don't do
Come.
I
that.
think we have enough men for that.
Oh, I'm leaving.
Only like 3 people can get in the portal at once. Just
Not with that attitude.
Let's go.
Blitz and I just politely waiting. we
no,
go.
don't scare my people. Okay.
Good morning.
Oh wait, I
Let's get
forgot
going
how.
before the iron golem.
Dirt.
Oh shit, yeah.
Dirt. Dirt.
Move,
Dirt.
then, move.
Dirt.
Oh, I
So yes, sir.
Well,
I
y'all
minimized my
do.
Minecraft for a second there.
That's just rude.
Impolite even.
I woke up
I'm
this
jealous.
morning.
This
telling me I
place
have
is
to go to
very
fucking
dangerous for
Equinox.
me.
What the hell is this shit?
Ah, no, the entertainment's after me.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
What the fuck is a kilometer?
Where are we going?
Run.
Ah!
Oh. Who has not slept?
Guilty.
And who's glitching out?
Night, but I slept.
Let's regroup.
Sorry, I was with your dad last night.
Whoa!
I feel bad for you then.
Not your dad, Captain.
Why is everyone okay?
Not your dad.
I was gonna wait for people, but then you guys just kept going. I didn't even
Wait,
tell you
my
where we were
dad?
going.
Panda!
I can't wait.
Surprise! This is where we're going.
Oh, whoa! I love this surprise.
Panda would
Yay!
live great on the tip of my.
Ah, that's not a panda. That is not a
They're
panda.
little red
Just blew up a
pandas on my
panda.
pack.
It was not me.
Oh.
I just was the last one at the scene of the crime.
They're little guys.
At the scene of the crime.
Panda!
Little guy on my end.
Un
Now my
bebe.
surprise is that you can name a panda.
I couldn't even name my horse, let alone a panda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like cause like they're an endangered species and it's like a zoo or some shit. I don't fucking.
Sorry.
Oh
my God, there's
I was giving
babies.
cool a bunch
Line
of
up for a name tag.
Oh my god, he died!
Oh, Jesus. What?
Help.
Don't
Question
kill
mark?
them. What?
Can I, like... Oh my god.
Again, lad.
No, it helps if
I
I
don't
put
have
the
any
name tag
levels
in the
because I
Single
died.
file. Oh yeah, if you need me to do it,
Hey!
I'm gonna do it. We can do it. Hey. Single file.
Scarlet
Okay, I gotta think of a good
I
name.
don't have any levels.
I gotta think of a good name.
I don't think of good names.
Didn't
I
you
think
already
of
get
really
one?
stupid, funny names.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought someone else picked up August's.
I've read them one more time.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go read them so there's enough for everyone. Sometimes
Okay.
they want.
Here it is.
Okay.
I've named one John Man, and I love
This
him.
one's mine.
That's my. This is my child,
John
Cherry Pop.
Man?
Yeah, specifically spelled with the H at the end.
I see that.
That
What are
wasn't a
we-
dyslexic moment. That was on
Ryder,
purpose.
Cherry Pop.
He did a backflip!
It's escaping.
Cherry Pop.
Panda's escaping.
Ooh,
Yeah, Cherry Pop's mine.
like that. Very nice.
Stupid.
Oh, I forgot
Jubin!
about this cobblestone. Damn it! It was supposed to be all pretty for you guys.
Oh, I love Jubin with everything in me.
I don't really have much plans.
He's brown and he does backflips.
Oh,
Lil Dirt.
Oh.
This guy still needs a name. Who doesn't?
Which guy?
Because I'm still deciding, and I don't have levels.
Oh, have someone else write it for you when you decide what you want to do.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I've got 12 levels if anyone else doesn't
I've
want
got
to do
18
it.
levels still.
Oh,
I got
perfect.
22.
I got you. Just can somebody name?
John Man!
Yeah, I can.
Bee doo bee
Little
boo
guy.
boo bee.
Greatest name.
Little guy.
Lil Dirt! Cherry
He's
Pop!
literally
Yo, look at these guys! They're in a little gang! Lil Dirt, Cherry Pop, and
committing
Jubin!
crime?
Look at these guys!
Who doesn't have
Little crime lads!
I love Cherry Pop. He's my son.
I just want to
They're
harass
like
my friends.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
They've been
Oh my
out
gosh,
for
they should have been
seconds
Huey
and
Dewey.
they're already
That'd be
committing
so cute.
crimes.
That's so good.
Strider and John Man are their parental figures for right now.
Yeah,
This is the
yeah.
Wynant over here.
Wanted.
Or Wino.
Like
What is?
$5,000
Does
bounty.
this one have a name?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, little guy's the Wynant.
Yeah.
Little guy's the Wynant.
Bee doo bee.
Come on,
Bee
little
doo
guy.
bee.
Be-doopy.
Bee doo bee.
I love these pandas so much.
Nice.
I've only known these pandas for 1 day, but if anything happened to them, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Real.
I think it's. I
going to
just.
leave this room.
Oh! Let's go!
I do not wish to be killed.
Come. Look at them. I even taught them
Oh!
tricks.
Jubin just fucking grew in front of my eyes.
Jubin!
Jubin!
Jubin! Little guy.
I like how he's like a different color.
Soup. Cherry pop.
Yeah,
soup.
he's brown.
Oh, is he a brown
Jubin's
one?
not a
That
little
feels like
man
super rare.
anymore.
There's
Yeah.
the brown.
Because I have the texture pack, so I can't see him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jubin's brown.
He's
Cherry Pop's falling into the water. Oh no.
Cherry Pop,
get
no!
out, Get out.
God damn it, Cherry Pop.
I think the brown
Yeah,
thing
my
is
God,
like
Cherry
1
Pop.
in like 500 or something.
Correct.
What?
He's
I can't
wild.
The
find,
brown panda is really rare.
Can't be 500.
That's
Oh, there's
wild.
Jubin. I have the KSMP texture pack on, so Jubin's just
Yeah, they
a,
all
not a
look
red
like-
Yeah, they all.
I can add a specific one for
It's 2%,
brown
it's
one.
1 in
The brown
50.
pandas.
on my.
Maybe make it a raccoon.
I should. That'd be funny.
This guy doesn't have a name if anyone hasn't done it yet.
I haven't.
I haven't.
Name him Telescope.
Okay.
Telescope.
Telescope.
It's a baby.
Okay, who needs an
This is
item
what
now?
happens when you put a bunch of neurodivergents in charge of naming it creatures.
He looks like a telescope. Look at him.
What are you doing?
You can see him.
I need a
I
name.
go to
guys.
check in on the pandas and you're just casually stabbing yourself in the face.
Please. No.
Who's stabbing himself in the face?
Elias.
Oh, he deserves it.
Cherry
Oh.
pop.
Elias.
Cherry Pop like swimming.
What's
Yeah.
the worst thing I can name this chat?
Yes.
Balls.
Look, a panda found me.
Wait,
How
where
would I
are you?
name it?
I'm running.
I'm
running,
in a hole.
I'm running.
You're in a hole.
Running and running.
John man.
I'm incognito.
John man.
Oh, hi Scar.
Hi.
Wait, where are you?
You're not on that incognito, but this is not a good scene to be stuck in.
Am I allowed
Oh.
to?
How'd you get in that?
I
wanna
think
get-
there's like a
Oh.
chapter on it.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh no!
Did
why
you
are on
accidentally take
fire?
off your? No, it's just Scarlet. Scarlet's trying to kill me and Elias.
This is
That's
the
some
best
bullet.
ever
What are
shooting
you doing back
position.
here?
Oh my.
Oh! Oh! Ah!
No, Elias, I'm gonna
You
die.
didn't
Stop
see
shooting
anything
me.
cool.
Unnamed.
Oh yeah.
I saw everything.
Whoa.
My bad.
I'm a spider. I see it all.
I need to find my
Oh.
name yet.
That's
I have
spooky.
8 eyes for seeing everything that happens.
Oh,
Oh.
Jubin jumped on you.
No,
What
Since
the
you have
fuck
8
did that
eyes-
say?
If you needed glasses, would you have to have
Silicovolcaniosis.
Hold on.
4 different glasses?
You got this. You got
Yes.
this.
No. Stop moving. No. No.
And if you had
That's backlit.
astigmatism,
Scoliopic
would you need to have
vol-
8 different prescriptions?
volcanosis.
I hope so.
Poniasis.
Yes.
I'm asking all the serious questions here.
The answer is always yes.
That's absolutely insane.
There we go.
Say that 10 times fast.
What?
No.
Alright,
You
let's
can barely
fucking
say
go.
it one time slow.
Whoa,
Yeah.
look at all
my
of
God,
them. They're all
Ultramicroscopic
getting big.
Silicovolcaniosis. Nomina ultramicroscopic
Holy shit!
Silicovolcaniosis. Nomina ultramicroscopic silicovolcaniosis. Nomina ultramicroscopic silicovolcaniosis.
God, keep going.
I'm gonna have
Never
a
do that.
seizure.
Nomina.
I have an important announcement. Someone needs to kill
Yeah.
Elias real quick.
Why?
I left all of my killing
Scoop won't drink
mechanisms
water
at
unless
home.
someone kills Elias.
Where is he?
Oh.
Where is
That's
he?
fair.
Where is he?
Are we doing an Elias hunt?
Oh, Elias.
Okay, time to F3A.
I don't see him on the map,
Yeah,
Where
he
is
might
other
be
dad?
left.
but everything's kind of stacked, so it's hard to see.
Did he
Where
ever
is
get...
other dad?
He's still online.
What is
It's time to
that?
go hunt.
Hello.
Oh
Hi.
yeah, I have 2 more name tags if anyone wants to name the birds.
I want to name one Ruben.
Where are you?
Right here.
I'm going on top of the trees on a hunt
Bust.
for a liar.
Oh,
Are you
shit.
okay?
No. Oh, fuck.
Where is he?
Hold on, I have to remember how to change myself.
Sheep.
Bad.
Change thyself.
Ep, 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 ep.
Ep, 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 ep.
Ep, 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 ep. What? I heard a bestie. What?
Marco.
I'm trying to find
Polo.
a place.
Is that how people do this? I don't know.
Do you not know how Marco Polo works?
No, I didn't grow up American.
I've never done it with anyone except for a random guy in a Walmart. I heard him yell out Marco and I responded Polo. I was not the person he was looking for, but I'd always respond reflexively, so unless I'm the person you want, Oh, there he is on the map! Hi!
Is that him? Is he
Yeah.
flying?
Yeah!
I don't have wings.
Oh, they went to my iron farm.
Wait, he's here. Where is he?
He's at my iron farm. Or at least I can see stuff.
He's in the stack of people.
Mom's here.
Oh, there he is. Get back here.
Get him. You. Why you should bring armor?
Who are you? Why are you away from...
Fucking punch. Where did he go?
Let's not just do the pandas.
There's a panda away from everybody.
I'm coming.
Levi!
Shit.
Levi!
Hello?
There's a panda away from everybody.
I found.
Where's this bottle?
Which one?
And he doesn't have a name.
Where?
Over here. He's just on his own.
I don't know. They told
They
me to.
do that sometimes.
Oh no. Oh no. He's coming close.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
we're
little
so-
butt.
Boy.
Little butt. I saw him when I was up in the trees. See, he doesn't have a name.
Come on. Come on back. They're really stupid.
They silly.
I feel...
Someone can name this one.
I want to name him...
Hi.
Don't do it. Go away.
I'm gonna.
You
I
broke
will
my
kill,
shield.
I'll kill a panda.
No, you
gonna
will
kill-
not.
I'm gonna kill Strider.
Oh.
I'm shieldless
Fuck's
now.
sake. This is unfair. I wanna fly. I only get slow falling.
Oh, hello. There you go, Gimlin.
Backflips and it's the cutest thing ever.
Oh,
I keep
I
hearing
named him.
ow!
the
I'm gonna
sounds of
die.
war.
Oh.
Yeah!
I don't think
Team
I'll
effort.
name my bow friend,
Give 'em.
so I didn't
Give
bring
'em.
Give him.
I should have brought my other shield.
Anyone find Elias?
He is on top of a tree. He's no danger to the pandas.
Oh,
I shot him
no,
in
no,
the
no.
head.
It's important we kill Elias at least once.
I already did that.
No, no, no. It has to be now.
Oh, backflip off the block,
'Cause that was
boy.
before.
The really long named one's doing tricks.
Ooh.
That's
What's the really long one's
He's
name?
mine.
August?
Hold on. He has to stay still so I can read it. Where'd he go?
Phenomia.
No, he's running.
Oh, he hurt himself.
Elias is making an escape. He's making an escape.
Phenomia.
He did a backflip off of a three
went
block
into the
height and he
water.
got hurt.
Oh,
360
Yeah.
no scope.
Okay, yeah, literally. Okay, stay still, please. Stop.
Numero
Ultra
uno.
microscopic.
No, I gotta do this.
The bee
Numo
packs a
Nultra.
fucking
Oh, I can't see him
punch,
anymore.
bitch. Wait, is he coming for me?
can you see it on the map?
Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Okay.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Nultra microscopic silico Vulcan. I can't see it anymore. It keeps cutting out.
Number now, ultra microscopic silicovolcaniosis.
Volcaniosis.
Fucking eat shit.
I
There.
feel like
I
you
got
guys
it.
just said the same thing.
Friends,
We did.
I must take Nelly out.
One of us was just at like
I've been shooting him for like.
Point-
I've run out of arrows.
0.8.
Wait, are you coming back?
Yes, I might be back if she wants to go to the bathroom fast. Otherwise,
Okay.
Enjoy your evenings, friendos.
Woo.
Scar.
Enjoy it.
Bye,
Enjoy
guys.
it.
Miss you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Heart. You're fucking lucky.
She's dead.
Do we want to head over to the official area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Bye, everybody. I was talking to the pandas.
He takes no damage.
Bye, pandas.
Alright, let's
Bye,
go.
Oh, watch out.
Goodbye.
Elias
the
can
very
stay
Bye,
with the
pandas.
Specifically long name, Pneumono, whatever.
No, Geniosis.
Goodbye, Mono Panda.
It's like the longest word language.
Yeah, it is.
No, the longest word in the language is the
Titan.
phobia of long words, if I remember correctly.
Indeed.
You're such a troll.
At
Wait.
first I was gonna name him
Phobia of
Colostomy
long
Bag, but I
words is
felt that was
a long
weird.
To drink water.
Drink water.
I just wanted to
Drink water, goddamn.
Embrace
I
the dirt,
love
not the
drinking
water.
water.
Beep beep beep
Alright,
beep
and
beep
everybody,
beep
and
beep 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 beep. Beep 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 I love that they're walking away, but they don't know where they're going.
I'm drinking water, which means you
What
don't
is
have to
that
drink water.
sound? Is someone opening like a packet of chips?
I'm eating Cool Ranch Doritos.
I'm eating live cereal.
I have not had breakfast.
Okay, is
What
this
do you
everybody?
eat?
I think so.
This is my breakfast, and it's 8 o'clock.
Oh,
We're like,
bestie.
For
I
a
wake
second
up
to
at
reheat
6
some
a.m.
pizza.
Log on
Because I'm
to
hungry.
Kingdom's
Where are we going?
SMP.
This
It's
way.
time to spring Equinox.
It's
We are
time.
springing an that one. Yeah, pretty much.
This way.
I don't know how to pronounce the word. I can spell it. Equinox.
There is not enough minecarts for everyone.
You don't
Watch
need
this,
it.
though.
Whee!
I need it because I'm slow as shit in this area. Buddy, get out of the way.
Best away from me! Dusty!
Oh.
Ah, stupid.
Bye, cool.
Funny, I'm gonna run into you.
I'm gonna get run over. I'm gonna get run over. No!
Whee! This is so cool!
Where
Big
we
hallway! Yippee! I
Where
love
the
big
hell's everyone?
hallways! I have
They're
experience with big
close.
hallways.
Oh, no.
I don't understand anything they say.
House.
Oh.
Wait, it actually is?
Yeah.
Hello.
Did it make us go through the wrong portal because they're close to each other?
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Where are you? Oh, I see.
We should totally visit the Flower Kingdom while we're here and give them donations of
Truly.
massive wealth.
I need to give them donations of massive wealth.
It definitely
actually.
doesn't play in that the Flower Nation's leader is right here.
Oh, guys, pretend
Yeah.
this is what you saw when you went through the portal.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Set spawn before play?
Oh my god, this is so
Is there,
pretty!
like-
Why do I feel like we're about to die?
that's
Is there a
that's
chest
for
we can, like, put our
spleef.
shit in?
Yippee! Papo, pe, papa, pidi,
Boop,
papo,
boop, 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 boop.
papo, pe, pa-
I mean, I'm sure Pride won't mind if we take some trees down and make chests.
There's a chest area over here. I don't know if this is part
OMG.
of the game, though. Maybe use these.
How can my powers help me, Spleef?
I keep forgetting what's on my dress because I accidentally made that. I was gonna make a new dress, but I forgot.
Ah, sticky keys.
Turn that shit off.
I don't know how.
I hate. I can't take anything else off, or else I'll die right in front of all of you.
I took off my
Yeah.
We're
Hold
gonna
on.
get mugged.
Y'all want to see a cool trick real quick?
Yeah?
Yeah, show us. Oh!
Spontaneous combustion.
I love spontaneous combustion.
Fire!
Spontaneous
Jesus.
combustion.
Hey, you are clipping so bad today.
This reminds me of like Little Big Planet music.
Yeah. What game?
Yeah, DJ,
guys.
I love DJing.
Yeah!
Is this parkour?
turn
I'm shit at
jukeboxes
parkour.
off.
No.
No, that's just lanterns. Okay.
Yeah, they're just lanterns.
Ooh, what's this?
Oh, jukeboxes are full. Maybe I should just turn up my Minecraft volume.
I'm just putting my stuff in here so no one
Yeah.
touch it.
I'm gonna do
I
the
put
same
my
thing.
stuff in the chest as well.
Ah!
You okay? Did you step in the fire?
On the beat.
Up.
I'm gonna take like half my food and carry it on me.
I messed up my stuff.
Absolutely. I need to check everyone's pronouns in the server before I say anything ever again.
I feel that
Oh
all
my
the
God,
time. My pronouns are yeehaw.
Me when I put on a sick cowboy hat.
Okay, so I did have like pretty much everyone's memorized. I just had to double check. Wait, I don't have blitzes because blitz never is interacting with me.
Blitz, do you have pronouns?
Guys.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
There's the bed for spawn. Go sleep.
Uh-oh.
This is the perfect music for like a sudden attack.
It is.
Like,
Cosmic murder. Would that make me diplomatically isolated?
what?
It'd make you a
Hold on, I
bigot.
can't-
I did a frog.
I need
You what?
turning down my music.
There's a frog.
Wait, it would make
Where?
me what?
Yeah, he was here the
Froggy!
entire time I was building, just having a good time.
Why is my jukebox music not going down when I turn it down?
I have no idea. Mine isn't either.
Why are these not waterlogged? Can we not waterlog these sea pickles?
No, you can.
Yeah,
They're
why
just
is he not
annoying.
I'm waterlogging these.
Hold on.
They
Doing
look
God's
so
work.
not pretty when they're not waterlogged.
We're just gonna go system default for music.
Ow, shit. Fuck my bone. Oh, shit, that hurt.
I
Oh,
realized
shit.
I can
I
turn
didn't
down my
actually need
master volume for Minecraft because it's
Alright,
different from
guys.
the voice mod.
Watch, I gotta bop.
This is the most boring song we played all night.
I don't know, what are you trying to say about my taste in music?
It's classical.
I like classical.
Yeah, you would.
Statism.
Oh my god, we have sleep?
Yes, that's what
That's
I've been
the-
saying. Let's start a game. Let's do something. Oh,
Yeah, we've
fuck!
s-
I love this song.
That's what the area with the bed is. That's
Are
why
we
you set your
ready
spawn.
for gaining?
Spleef is the area up in the sky, but it's a one-time use. we have hide and seek, which is deadly. That's in the maze over there. Over there. And then we have musical boats over here.
Ooh, fun.
Let's do. Spleef.
Yeah.
Hold on. Before we start any games, I'm gonna real quick IRL grab some pizza and reheat it because
Okay.
I'm always hungry during streams. I don't know why.
While you do that,
Sorry
if anyone
for all
else
the
has to go to the
replays.
bathroom or get a drink or anything, go for it.
Go TT, go now.
You gotta go TT. I'm actually gonna grab a snack.
I eat my Ritz crackers.
I probably should also grab a snack.
Does anyone have extra bread and cooks run out?
I have
You-
pumpkin
what?
pie.
I got baked potatoes on me.
Take it. Hey, why are you like on constantly low health every time I see you?
I forget. I'm really bad at having life.
Okay.
It's a long story. Has to do with God. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna go grab a snack.
It got really cold in my room.
Yeah, banger track.
Whew.
Hell
Love
yeah.
this one.
Jesus, that's spooky.
You're spooky.
Damn right. Boom.
There's a black cat. Ow.
Meow.
El gato. El gatito.
El gatito.
Gatito.
My gatito blade.
El gatito.
Oh, remix.
He doesn't like me.
Got cold?
Guys, pretend I'm doing the Club Penguin dance.
Okay.
What the fuck has been going on while I was eating my pizza? I have Bluetooth headphones so I can hear everything going on when I leave.
Yeah, get it, funny. Get in it.
Oh, are we listening to
The
like,
best part is I wasn't a Club Penguin kid, so I have no context for this.
I just know this dance.
It's my turn for the music.
Hey!
Oh, yeah, get
A classic.
that.
I love that.
Yep,
Jesus.
you're gay.
Wow!
Who are you sniffing?
Aggressive
Oh.
sniffing.
What the fuck?
My gaydar works through my nose.
That's hot.
It must be very sensitive right now since most of us are gay.
I'm not even gonna
I'm
try.
back.
Welcome back.
Have a sandwich.
What's on it?
Turkey.
Whoa. What else?
Turkey.
I'm a
It's
The
only
turkey.
turkey. Dude, pretending
Yeah.
it's a sandwich by folding turkey on top of turkey.
Yeah. Look, man. I don't like a lot of food. And I don't like cheese.
You don't like bread.
Cheese is amazing.
I like bread.
Is it just turkey between 2 slices of bread?
Yeah.
Fair
What's
enough.
wrong with that?
Let's be
Little
eating a
guy.
peanut butter sandwich.
Little
What's up?
fella.
Peanut butter and bread.
Little fella.
Me too. Me too.
Hey. You're
Well, I'm
right,
not
but that's
autistic.
not
I'm just
nice.
eating plain cheese. Because it's the only pizza I like, and it's the only thing I've eaten for the past 1 or 2 days.
So real. Penal.
real for that though.
Penis.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
I got pizza from a local place, and I got
Yeah,
two
what do we wanna play?
larges.
let's
And,
play
um,
Spliff.
I've already finished
Where do
one
we
and
put
a
our
half.
stuff? I don't want to die and burn.
Put it. Designated
There's chests over there, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
got
have one of the double
food on me,
chests.
but that's it. Actually, I'm gonna put it on that.
I'm gonna put the CD away.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Ow.
Hold on, I'm
You
being
just
called.
look like
I'll
a
be
dude.
right back.
Okay.
Ah!
There's-
Most
I
of
need
us
a
just
map.
like
I need
look
shit.
like little funky
This
dudes.
is mine.
I vibe with it.
The entire flower kingdom is gold.
Scoop, have you thought about this? The fact that maybe you are
Tempting.
technically autistic?
But I would never.
What?
Scoot's in my chat. I was telling him he's autistic.
Oh. You were looking
I'm
at
just
me and I
saying.
was confused.
Wait, are we meant to be bubbles to sleep?
You're autistic.
Autist for autist.
August is autist.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Stop cobwebbing people. I
Whoa,
will
it goes
poison you.
away. That's a neat trick.
Poison
I
you.
should have grabbed my food for the
It
creative
fizzles.
refreshments area.
Yeah.
Ow!
It's too late now though.
Give me poison.
Oh yeah, the sunflowers I gave you are bone mealable, but the dandelions.
I think
aren't.
this invokes our treaty queen. I'm gonna get over here. Get over here. Yeah.
Ow, why am I poisoned?
Get stung, bitch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Me,
die.
me and Funny are the two people that will punch you and poison you.
I'm gonna die.
Okay. You don't have anything on you. Go
Well-
ahead and die.
Wait, are we gonna lose our levels after Spleef?
Yeah, probably.
Oh damn. Okay, well, better take away Cool's levels now. Where did he go?
Over here, you by the dance floor.
My levels.
He had seeds on him, and that was
So
it.
sorry, they started asking me hypotheticals. Like,
My
Damn.
poor levels.
life.
Are we
Why
going
do
to
I
start
always pick
Spleef
the
yet?
bad
I'm about to run out of food.
That was cool.
Yes.
You can tell by the
Yeah,
fact
we
you're
were
not
just waiting for
poisoned.
8 to get back. Levi, please put the disc away. We're gonna
Why?
play
Left
Spleef.
now.
I thought we were waiting.
8 just
We're
got
no
back.
longer waiting.
Oh. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Well,
Alright, Spleef time.
Spleefing. I'm spleefing and sploofing.
How are we getting up there?
Like
There's a
that.
teleport
There's a
button.
for it.
Once you get up there, obviously do not start until everybody else is up there. Once you are up there, distance yourself from everybody else. I'll do like a countdown for when we
I
start
did
once
not
we're
get
up
a
there.
shovel. Uh-oh.
That's because someone else got your shovel.
Why are there phantoms?
I kind
My
of
bad.
wish you put a roof over Spleef, but
I'm not.
all the phantoms are dying because they don't have umbrellas like I did.
Levi, can you hear me? Okay. I'm gonna go in the middle.
hey, can you hear me?
Can you
Yes.
even spell 7?
Can everybody hear me from here?
Yeah.
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 Okay, cool. Alright, so I'm gonna stand here just so that everybody can hear me for a second. Just so I can make sure. Alright, everybody's got their shovels?
No, I forgot to grab it.
Okay.
Can
Here.
we turn the snowballs into snow blocks and start cranking 90s?
No.
By the way,
know what that
if I
meant.
die
Guys,
and my umbrella gets dropped to the bottom, can
wanted to
someone grab
crank.
that? Because I don't have a backup.
Here, I'll have a backup on. I'll just... You know what? Here, give me a sec.
Meow.
Give me your snacks.
Oh,
What the
thank
fuck?
you for the follow,
I want
Blitz.
your snacks.
Okay, I stuck a bunch of backup umbrellas in one of the chests down there.
Crackers.
Thank you.
I want
Yep.
them.
Hey, stop that!
No. Respectfully, ma'am. No.
Okay, so everybody is free of all their stuff, right? All their stuff's downstairs.
Except my
Okay,
ghost.
everybody. Oh, okay. Everybody now has shovels.
Yeah.
Felt that. Okay, so as you probably saw at the bottom, there's lava, so you won't die instantly, but it'll be fairly quick. I do say fairly. Obviously this isn't like an automated thing, so you know you have to jump in the you have to jump in the lava to be able to get out of here if you win. But you're obviously gonna be the the last person in here, so we'll know that you won, or at least you can be like, oh hey, I won. So yeah, a little bit of an honor system, but also not. So I keep looking over at you and keep seeing you do that, and it's so funny for no reason. But yeah, so I'm gonna go in my corner and I'll count down in chat just so that I'm not closer to you guys than the rest of you. So.
Okay.
Whee!
I want the balls. Why can I not pick up the balls? I want the balls.
Oh.
This is like Fall Guys.
What is it? What? Hang on.
Whoa!
Why is it so
Whoa!
fast?
What are you up to, 8?
Stay back.
You motherfucker. Whoa!
Creating a perimeter.
Attacks from below!
Ah! Attacks from below!
No.
Hi, Blitz.
Alright.
Oh, shit.
Yeah!
Fuck.
Poison!
Ah!
Trolled.
Fuck! Motherfucker!
Alright, you and me,
I was
Blitz.
doing so
Get
good!
back here! Why is he so fast? What?
Oh, I gotta go.
This isn't fair. This isn't fair. Hacks, hacks, I'm calling hacks.
Yeah, we do have origins. So that is
Yeah.
Okay, this is...
cool. Can just climb back up the walls.
Yeah, but it's impolite,
And
so...
Levi isn't taking any fall damage when he falls.
That is
Oh.
correct. I mean, damage isn't really. But
Yeah, damage isn't really
Yeah,
a
but I'm
factor.
already at half health with
oh shit! Damage isn't
Oh.
a factor. Kills 8.
Yeah.
Oh! Ah!
Sorry about that.
No, Queen, no! Queen, don't you dare!
Levi, come on, I'm not gonna hurt you.
Sorry, I was texting.
Queen, please!
Text
Queen,
me.
find it in your heart! Queen, I'm begging. I'm on my knees.
Ah!
Wait a minute, no. She's
What?
still up there.
Oh, snowballs don't... Oh! I can poison people with snowballs?
What a way to figure that out, wow.
Hey, wait! I think that's cheating.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'd
no.
say
I
I'd
get
say
to
don't.
run around like this, I get to poison people with my balls.
That whoa.
funny.
Get over here.
Come on. Oh.
I'm
Please,
dead.
someone else come down here. I am being absolutely
You murdered me.
harassed.
I can't play video games now.
Get back here!
Come back here.
I'm dead already. I'm just sitting here for fun.
No! Yes!
I'm here
The
for
most
content.
terrifying thing I think I've ever encountered is
Queen
jumping
at the top.
across a gap and seeing Queen below me.
Yeah, that is pretty terrifying.
Sweet.
I'm so scared.
I don't think I would ever want Queen as
What?
a
Why
serial
does it not
killer.
like Snowball down
Oh,
15,
hey!
But not like anyone else.
Oh no! I can't sprint anymore. Fuck.
Me either. Oh fuck. I'm gonna die of hunger before
You're
I die.
behind.
You up too
Get
cool.
back here.
No, stay away.
What are you again, Blitz?
Blitz is a
Fox.
fox.
Get back here, you damn fox.
Dude, Blitz and I were doing so well on that top level, and things went to shit so quickly.
Ow.
Ah! I killed
Done.
Pool.
Damn.
Right, my balls already.
Tactical strategy of he fell on me,
Okay.
and then I hit him down.
I wish I could sprint. Can I eat snowballs?
This is a very slow chase right now. Oh, I fell down.
Oh.
I'm just gonna make this worse for others. Hey, Queen.
How much damage do these shovels do?
No, no, no.
Enough to kill 8.
Apparently.
SMP is cool.
Jesus, where even are you guys
Some are
still?
disadvantaged with
I'm
the
gonna need food
hearts
soon.
because of the origins.
Oh no, I'm gonna need food soon.
Whoa. Goddamn.
Goddamn.
I need food.
Oh, we got our first loser? Besides
Holy shit. Are you only who is on the like second level up there?
Wait, funny. Did you not die yet?
No, I'm still up here.
Are you shitting me? How am I supposed to get you?
Funny, how am I supposed to give you food? I'm still
coming
running.
down. Yeah. Oh wait, no, I just need to fly Blitz again now. Alright. You fucker, let's go. I can't. Ah, I can't spin!
Oh my.
Wait, you can? Fuck.
It'd be impolite to use that though.
I love that. I love you.
I'm coming.
Nah,
Very
it's okay. I want
slowly.
to see Funny
I am
and Blitz
approaching.
duel it out.
I'm approaching. I need food. I'm gonna hit you with my poisoned balls. Oh!
Fuck! Hi guys.
I need food. Can I ask Cap for food? Is that allowed?
No, you'll go to jail.
No, okay. Guess I
Federal
just don't get
prison.
the sprint. You stay away. You stay away.
I set one on fire. Oh, that's the lava. Never mind.
Oh,
Ah!
no.
You killed yourself! Yeah, it's funny.
This is my layer now.
Where's Blitz? You hiding up there? I'll give me back blocks when you're done,
Myself, thank
Blitz.
you very much. You stay away. You stay away from me. No! No!
Hey, didn't you die? How are you here?
I'm hanging out.
Oh, you just
Ow.
oh.
8 died twice.
We were meant to be friends!
Oh, damn it.
Are you still in Queen or are you just chilling?
Oh, who just fell?
Yeah, Quinn's still in.
I'd love to come join you guys, but I'm trying to find Blitz.
This is, I think, upper floor. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Oh, there goes Queen.
Ooh, ow.
There goes Queen.
Nice.
Wow.
That's what she gets. Who's still in?
I am. Oh, so many balls. Get out of my get out of my bar.
Let's come fight me. Come back.
What level are you guys even on?
Ah, it fell! Fuck me.
Oh my.
I leave by. I'm going to approach you very
Levi,
slowly.
fall down one more,
No, that's
bestie.
okay. You don't have
I
to.
was A.
Come
Okay, what the fuck happened?
Flame Queen.
Murder is never an accident. Ah! I wasn't paying
I
attention.
have to get rid of another fucking
Wait, I thought you were dead.
Hang on. Yeah,
Me?
dead.
Oh yeah, Queen's
Me and
dead.
Queen are both dead.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as they're fighting each other, not us. Sizzle, sizzle.
Sizzle sizzle.
I go back.
It's like a
yeah,
demented
I was-
version
I
of
was-
Double Double Toil and
AFK,
Trouble.
I'm just go back to AFK.
Good
Bye.
Whew.
Oh, Ray's dead again.
job. Almost happy. Maybe we could do that.
I'm back.
Yeah, you two have fun down there. I'm gonna be starving.
Are you back and better than ever?
That was
Or is that
very
just me?
scary.
What? No! Motherfuck!
Sir, I just want to get an umbrella.
Huzzah! 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 Wait, wait. Blitz! Is Blitz safe?
Blitz is on the second level!
I was trying to get them.
Oh my
so-
god.
Someone can get him down!
Blitz is on the second level. Just all alone.
Young man.
Or else what?
Oh my goodness.
I hit you with my
Hi Blitz, how you doing? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Blitz. You gotta get down there. You gotta go down, Blitz.
Gotta get down with the clown.
It's just you and Blitz.
Wait, I'm in?
Oh, so it's just you three then. Oh, sorry. Don't mean to be hitting you.
Of course. That's the best way to watch.
Oh no.
This is the slowest escape from sleep I've ever had.
Oh my goodness. Stop fighting it, Blitz. Get down there.
Should we like coordinate to knock Blitz down from that level?
I agree. Then we can have a 3-1
Yeah.
1v1.
Yeah, Blitz is one level up from you now. Oh! Oh!
Oh!
Admittedly, that was my fault. I'm gonna get Blitz back in. Admittedly, that was my fault. I kept punching Blitz, trying to get them down.
That is fair.
Wow.
So I'm gonna. Oops. Okay. Don't touch them. I have to get them a.
I need to go after you before you pull something stupid.
Blitz is just running faster. How's what the hell?
I don't know.
I think foxes are. I think foxes
Yeah,
are
they
just
are.
faster.
Like way faster.
Ah,
Yeah,
but they hurt you. Why do they hurt you?
that's an advantage that they can't just ignore. It's or just not use.
I don't know.
Alright, I make creative underscore.
Oh,
I forget
oh,
someone
my
used
game's
snowballs.
frozen. Okay, we're back.
That happened to me earlier. It was very scary.
How dare, Queen? How dare?
Aren't you literally floating right now?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wait.
I'm standing on some blocks right now. They just happen to be moving with me, okay?
Sure. Likely story.
It is a likely story. Backed up by facts. Get me banned. You won't.
Yeah, can we ban?
Immunity.
He's using fly hacks.
SMH, don't you know fly hacks are banned?
Yeah.
I would know. I've been kicked from the server for quote-unquote flying.
I've been banned.
I'm gonna start cranking 90s if this battle does not end soon.
Start it.
Oh, fuck.
Watch the
No,
fun.
why did you summon me back in here again?
We're watching the fun times.
Yeah, but each time I lose an
I'm
umbrella.
just gonna let them. I'm just gonna let them.
Each time I lose an umbrella, dude.
Just stay in a corner.
Oh, because I
They
didn't
didn't
have
have the rank to fly.
Hmm?
The worst client.
Alright, it's time to start cranking 90s.
Oh my god, what are you
Whoa.
doing? Putting out!
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
What?
Crank
Sorry,
that,
cat.
crank that shit, soldier boy.
How's that
I'm
working?
going to crank. I'm gonna come over there. I'm coming.
EP not turned on or something?
I'm going to
No,
arrive
click.
soon. Oh, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Oh!
Yes, now it's just us.
Watch out,
How's
Abe.
your day today?
That's great.
Oh, damn. Nice.
Parkour.
It's not gonna do anything but distract us.
So mean.
I want to push one of them off, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Ale.
Can we even get to each other?
Bye.
I think you've destroyed majority of the gaps, if not all of them, that you can
I
use.
could double jump over there if I had hunger.
Yeah, me too.
This is a wide enough gap that you could get if you run.
I can't run.
Yeah,
I'm
well, none of us have
hungry.
food.
Oh. Yeah, now there's no no gaps.
I don't know what you mean. I got over here just fine.
Hold on.
Oh my god. No. I built a wall.
That's not fair, but bridging I feel like is fair. Come on.
No.
Only build on the x-axis.
Exactly. Come on. Here, I'll help you out.
This feels like I'm just walking into getting fucking murdered.
Come on.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
indeed.
Come on in.
Oh.
Come on over.
I'm gonna go this way. Actually, it's my friend.
Okay. Come on over.
Oh, you.
Oh, you.
It's like a western. Who's gonna draw first?
Wow, wow, wow. I'm the tumbleweed.
I think you could. Hey, funny. You could make the jump.
Make the jump.
Make.
I'm being very
Hey.
careful to not fall into.
I think one of you could make that jump from the side on the wall.
Oh, look, another tumbleweed.
Come make it like this.
Whoa.
Charlie, we gotta go to mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Alright,
Oh!
What the-
Goodbye.
It's glass.
What the fuck? What the?
It's
I'm
been
not
glass.
gonna fall that far.
What did you think it was?
Barriers.
I'm not that
Well,
smart.
you can see the...
Stop that.
Owie.
Bye. Okay, can someone
You're going
put
off.
me down?
You're going
I don't
off.
wanna lose
No.
another umbrella. I had to fight zombies last time.
Sullen.
Oh.
So what does second place get?
I didn't.
High five.
Pat on the back.
Yeah!
I'm gonna get some black blood myself. Did anyone else have food that they would like to eat right now?
In real life?
Alright, I need to go throw away my
No,
shovel.
in game.
Shovel.
Yeah, real life.
Brr, 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 brr.
My issue is I hear the music more than I hear the people.
Alright. Alright, I'm gonna start cranking. I'm cranking. This isn't my problem anymore.
Nope, I'm terrified of that.
Alright.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Who needs stairs when I'm not good? Ow.
Oh, I hope.
Rest in peace, cool.
How did you do that?
Sneaker goes crazy.
Cat, what do I get for winning this
It's like an escalator for me.
Sneaker goes
So-
crazy.
Sneaker goes crazy.
Okay. Okay, so,
Ow.
alright, I have the prizes.
Prizes!
Prizes!
I thought I was kidding. I didn't think I'd get anything.
Whoa! I look away for a couple seconds and this happens. Okay,
Bitches be
so,
cranking.
Funny,
Yeah?
come here,
I'm up here.
come here. Okay, first place.
Yippee!
Second place. Levi, come here.
Hi.
Second place.
My little silly.
Attack you! I'll wear it with honor.
Blitz, come here.
That's good.
You go, third place.
Ooh, chorus fruit. I need to get one of those.
What were all the treats? Levi, what'd you get?
Amethyst,
This
chorus fruit,
medal.
Ooh, a
and
medal.
sunflower.
Mebble.
Medal.
A pebble.
I can't do it.
Medal.
Hey, Queen.
Okay. Whoa! Actually,
Oh my.
that's a really cute screenshot, actually.
It is. Wow.
Everybody get up there. You guys
They're
get up there.
besties.
I'm not gonna go up
We'll
there.
have to
'cause
be
I
on a
can't.
different one.
Nice.
No,
Yeah,
wait,
you
I
guys
should
gotta get
find
on
out.
different ones.
I
Yeah.
can jump the farthest, so I'll get on.
Get on the blue.
Don't worry, I got it.
I'll go onto the blue one.
I got this one.
There we go.
That blue one will be mine.
Nice, nice. With that.
Snow.
Cool, you're a little obscure, bud.
That one.
What? Fine.
Yeah, go on the orange one. You're a little. You're a little.
Ah.
Oh, now you're poison. All right.
Oh.
What?
Whoa! What the
I-
fuck? I forgot you can climb.
I am the balloon.
Oh, I probably some of the snow.
Get rid of the snow before you take it.
Okay.
Can we have another shovel?
Ow.
Oh, wait, cool. Cool fell down.
Rested and cool.
Resting cool. Where are you trying to?
Okay.
Okay.
Frog!
Frog.
Fwab.
Where's the frog?
I'm
Oh god, I was on the edge of the glass block and I didn't even realize it.
Okay. Get back down here. Okay.
Yeah, it's me.
Levi.
Oh,
Alright, scoot back a bit, 8. There you go.
Don't have anything in your hands, guys.
Scoot back a bit, everybody in general. Some of you guys look like you're floating. Okay, you're good.
Indeed.
Okie dokie.
August, fly up here and sit on the orange one.
Wee.
Yay!
Yay.
Yay.
F1, F2,
Don't be good.
F5.
School me.
Group selfie. Selfie with the squad.
Selfie
hold
with
on,
the
I have an idea.
squab.
Everyone look at the campfires. I don't know, just something common.
Fires where? That one?
Mhm.
Oh.
Okay. I have the recording mod, so I can go back.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was
screenshot
looking
that.
at the lake.
Perfect.
Yippee!
I also just have a screenshot because I'm the furthest in front. People did
I
get
just
kind
figured
of
that way we
obscured
were
by
all looking.
funny.
Did everyone get their pictures?
Yeah.
Woo.
Remember to send them in chat later.
Ow.
Yeah, everybody who got
Meet them.
oh, everybody who got good group ones, send them in chat for
Spider
sure.
abuse.
Okay.
It's criming to
Put my umbrella on just.
Come here,
What
Blitz.
does
I'm gonna
everyone
start
want to play
pranking.
next?
I would like to play
Since-
the musical boats once I know how it works. I just want to know who's playing the music.
It's just musical chairs.
No, I want to know who's playing the
I'm
music.
coming. I'm coming over.
Someone has to play stealth music.
Oh, the flog's over here.
Squish,
Oh, Fob.
squish, squish.
I can be
Squish.
the DJ.
Okay.
Oh, flashbacks to when I wanted to stomp on your head like a Goomba.
No.
What?
How?
Remember?
What are we talking
Oh,
about?
Top
when
10
you were
most
tiny.
romantic things to say.
Oh, yes.
These knees?
When
Yes.
when we were playing
Aw.
What about my knees?
No, it was an old server that it was actually when we met 8. This was like before 8 joined though. When it was like just our friends on
Oh
there.
my
I
gosh,
think.
that's right. It was like Cole and other people I don't remember.
Cole, Allie, you, me. I don't remember who else was on there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4,
One.
5, 6, 7, 8. So we need 6. Because one person's
Stop
DJing
eating.
and we need one less
I'll DJ
than
the
the
first
people.
round.
So 6.
Wait, I'm gonna lose because of my ping. Oh, fuck.
Ha! Get wrecked. Get better internet.
Alright, I'll
I'll
move
record
to
this
America.
then.
That's how I'll get better.
Finally.
Yeah.
Okay. What song do we want to request for the first round?
Why did you put down 7, Cool? It
There
needs to
should
be
only be
6.
6 because I'm DJing.
Wait, aren't there 6 of us playing?
No, because Queen was sleeping.
I was sleeping.
Okay.
Hold on.
Move the
I feel
stuff
maths.
there in a circle.
Okay, perfect.
Is
Oh,
everybody
Oh.
ready?
Right round, baby,
baby, right around. We can't do this again. We can't do this
Not
again.
again, not again.
Not again.
Sting.
Don't
Uh-oh.
die. Are you guys
Okay.
ready?
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And go.
Which way we
Oh,
go?
I don't. We did not establish. which way
Yeah,
were
we should have
playing.
established this.
It's not very loud.
Blitz is cheating, Blitz is cheating.
Oh.
There's 2 of you in one of those!
Get out of my boat!
Eight.
Yeah! Murder!
Oh shit! Not what I
Oh my
thought.
god!
Okay.
So how many? One,
Now
two,
we need to
three,
remove a
four,
bow.
five. All right.
Remove this one because it's.
No, there's enough now. There's enough.
Oh,
Okay, put one back.
what is this, double elimination round?
Okay, ready?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, we're running this way this time.
Oh.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Murder!
cool.
Murder! Get over here! Get over here!
Oh god. You are brutal funny. Jesus. Who knew that the leader of the Flower Kingdom would be the most brutal?
I think it's really funny though.
I was about to say funny. So funny. Oh my gosh, I said it again!
Reference.
Are you ready?
Wait.
Committing a crime.
Yep. Where's
1 second. Okay.
okay?
50.
You.
I see the strategies here.
I'm just dancing.
That is the strategy. Hey, how did you die again?
I can't remove the smelly particles.
Fuck. But no.
I saw that. Can someone just like give me a shovel? No!
You've met your match,
Yeah.
funny man.
Okay, here we go. The final.
Funny
No,
woman doesn't
we
have as
to
much of a
remove
ring
bow.
to it. That's sad.
Yeah, misogyny.
Literally. You need to find an equivalent. What's an equivalent?
My funny.
Well, I can't hear this again.
Yeah, shut the fuck. No, I'm kidding. I'll sing it.
Yeah, perfect.
What if I change the music?
No, I'm the DJ.
None. You can't change it.
No,
Whoa,
I'm
whoa,
the
whoa,
DJ.
whoa, 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 whoa. It's still going. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's still going.
Okay.
Can I get a shovel to batter people with?
Okay,
No, it's
we
in
switched the
light.
song. You're good.
I actually put the same one.
Hey!
Oh my god.
Damn. I meant bam, not damn, but that works too.
Rest in peace, Queen.
Okay.
Aww.
No, second to last round.
Absolute
There's
brutalization.
There's players.
This might be last.
Bunny needs to come back into the playing
Okay.
field. Okay.
I'm sorry I like committing crime.
Why is the music?
Oh, I forgot I have more Cheetos.
Yeah.
Mmm.
Well, I mean,
Cheetos.
No, we saved that for the last.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the final round. Wait, no, that was you.
Whoa!
I can skip through all my wood.
It's hitting a little louder.
Oh.
Oh.
Damn.
Technicality, Blitz lost. You can't sit on the same chair as somebody.
Yeah, that would
It's
be
just
like
being
sitting on
funny.
your
Hang
lap.
on.
Not very funny.
I'm just
Okay, big step. Time for big step.
Oh, whoa.
Don't you
Mickey?
love La Bamba?
Yeah.
I wanna go home now.
I love La Bamba.
I wanna go home. Please. Hey, no.
What? What the fuck? Is
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the song ended.
Blitz!
I was singing La Bamba.
Get back here.
Yeah,
Get back
yeah.
here.
Stop poisoning me. That's my job for everyone else.
If we're playing again, I say winner picks DJ this time. Because
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that.
Especially since she keeps killing me. Yes.
I want a shovel. I'm gonna batter people.
Especially since she's the executioner.
I like eating batter.
What'd you do? What?
Babder.
Go villain error on you.
Joke's on you. I'm a girl who knows no consequences.
Team is playing. Do you mind?
Sheep. Hey.
Sting this man! Whoa!
Leaving.
Depth 1.2
Walter
White.
PvPer.
Yeah.
I called it poison. Hearts. Nearly there.
No.
I'm-
Yeah!
Later.
Blood!
That poor sheep.
Can I have my umbrella back?
No.
Umbrella Academy.
Now you think about what you've done. And you think, well,
My food.
no.
I'm gonna stage war against Funny.
I'm back!
Only Funny. Yeah. Listen, Funny started it.
Right, so, are we playing again?
See.
Where'd Levi go? Oh, Bestie!
I have iron armor. I'm not equipped either.
Yeah, then maybe stop killing people that were trying to be nice allies and gift you
Onward,
stuff.
Brutus! Rubid, no!
Rufus?
Booby, no!
Boobies?
Booby?
What?
Me when women.
Hello.
Are we ready for round 2? Oh, of course.
Yes.
No!
His name is Brutus, but also sometimes Brubin, but also sometimes Boobus.
Boobies!
Dude, I'm gonna be real with you when it comes to headphones. I got no fucking idea.
I love
Oh,
headphones.
can I go get one of those netherite shovels to use as my beating stick?
Sure.
Please stop beating people up. This is
Actually, there's a
supposed to be
better thing over at the
peaceful
maze. There's a better thing over at the maze.
Oh.
Oh god.
That scares the shit out of me.
Why are we letting a British person have weapons?
A British person?
Funny's not very funny anymore now. I'm just scared.
Funny's not
Because they know what to do when colonization comes around.
What?
Funny's not British.
So much murder.
Yeah, they sound.
Oh
Wait,
yeah,
what's
Welsh,
funny?
huh?
I guess.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Wait,
UK.
what is funny? What is she?
Welsh, right?
Funny.
Well,
Where do you come from?
where'd you come from?
Where'd you come
No,
from, Kan
Where
Nigel?
do you come from? We want to know if we can call you a colonizer.
Oh, shit. Sorry, I am from Flower Kingdom?
No.
Oh, I'm Thai.
Okay.
Ah!
So I got colonized actually, so no.
Oh, okay. You just have a colonizer accent.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm taking revenge against you fucking
Accurate.
Westerners.
Wait, can
Real.
you actually? Can we make a canon that the Flower Kingdom colonizes?
Yeah.
No! No! I mean,
Flower
there are
Kingdom.
Wait,
flowers
but that would make
everywhere,
that would make sense though because of the flowers. That
Oh
would
my
make
gosh.
sense.
Yeah.
Wherever the
Sure.
flowers touches my kingdom.
I guess.
Frog!
Yippee!
You love that frog. You should take it home.
No, it's just.
Maybe
It's
I'll
fun.
put it
It
in a
sounds
jar.
like
Either
every
not
Okay.
colonized
Minecraft
or
YouTuber
not
I
have a
know.
pretty kingdom. It's one or the other.
Who won last round, by the way?
Funny.
Funny.
and then they beat me up because I lost and killed
That's
me.
funny that Funny was the one beating everybody up and ended up winning. I like that.
She is now the DJ.
I have ridiculous. I know, like, the reason I won was because I
don't know
know
where the
that
frog
when
is.
the beat drop's meant to be, so I knew that the song ended.
Where's the
Beat
frog?
drop.
Where's the frog?
Yeah, I can't fucking hear shit right
Where's
now.
this rumored frog?
I don't know.
I'm
Frog's a
autistic
DJ.
and keep getting overwhelmed
frog.
by everyone.
Are we going to go again?
Yeah, we're going again. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay,
Whoa!
I can't.
Guys, no, the other way.
No.
Let's get out of the boat.
I
Let's,
wish
you can
my
get out of that
captions
boat
would
right
actually
now.
tell me
Yeah.
when songs are playing. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Let's.
Like, it's an accessibility tool.
Let's.
I'll say song and then no song, okay? Does that work?
How many people are in there? There's 6 people. Let's, you get in there. Okay.
Does song and no song work, or would you prefer something
I'm
else?
just waiting for Blit.
I just
Okay.
need, like, some indication.
No song. Fuck. Oh,
Get the
okay.
fuck out of my
Wait. Oh, August, I'm pretty sure there's an empty boat.
Ah!
Because Blitz isn't in there.
Blitz
Nobody
lost this
loses.
Yeah.
Is this a good song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Song.
Blitz,
Blitz in the boat.
round. Oh yeah, Blitz has been having problems with the mic, right?
No.
That's the person who was having problems with mic? I don't fucking know.
No, Blitz just is Blitz.
No song.
Oh.
I like to think that Blitz just signs.
Stop killing me just because I lose!
Alright.
That's
I do
canonically how
too.
Blitz communicates.
I do too. That should be canon.
I think it should.
I need to get
What?
rid of this.
I agree.
Blitz canonically signs to everyone.
Do you like that, Blitz?
This is
I
not
was
a good
thinking
song.
that the chat's just like signing to
No,
each
no,
other.
this is not a good
Yeah.
Signing or texting?
Wait, hold on. I didn't
Yeah,
get out of the
I
room
like
yet.
imagining texting from a distance, and we have
And then
like
signing
those
when
Tomodachi
closer.
life. Yeah.
We all canonically know ASL.
Yeah, I hope
Yes.
so.
Hello,
That's so
Gnarkic,
cool.
and good
I
job to you.
do.
Well, I'm learning it.
Hang
Oh,
on,
wait.
I'm just gonna do my
Hey,
stretches quickly.
hey.
Y'all do your thing.
Oh, that's a good stretch.
No song.
La 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 ba ba ba.
Yeah.
Run, cool. Cool,
Oh
run.
my god! That thing is powerful. I like that. Where's...
Like it, yeah. Like it. You like it?
Hello.
Any of you are in there. Wait, okay.
I've been getting rid of boats as we go.
What should the next disc
Good,
be?
good.
Damn, thinking ahead.
Don't you hate it when you burp? Aww.
Aww.
I do hate it when I burp.
Bum, 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 bum,
Hello.
bum, 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 bum,
Hi.
bum. Wait, is my mic working? It's not lighting up.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
working.
It's working.
Mine
Okay.
stopped lighting up.
Wait,
Mine
it's
stopped
Bum,
lighting
bum,
up too.
bum, bum, bum,
Yeah,
bum, bum,
same.
bum.
Oh, no,
Just want
no,
me
no.
to run. Okay.
Mine stopped
good
lighting
enough.
up a while ago and I got really worried. But you guys were reacting, so.
Yeah. Basically, if we don't hear you talking, we'll tell you.
This sounds like an Undertale track, like the
How would you know if
waterfall.
you can't
No,
hear talking?
little
this
bit.
is
Can you
like
hear them talking?
ooh ah so temperate, I think.
kind of.
Whoa.
Oi! Get back here!
Running.
Get back here!
I'm running.
Oh yeah? I have a gun. Alright, where are we? I'm back.
Ah!
Oh.
Do-do-do-do.
Oh!
Oh! Damn, Levi survived.
I did, because I'm just that cool.
Run,
Bunny's
Levi!
attack is so overpowered compared to mine, because mine's only melee, but they can do drain.
Oh.
Oh.
Melee.
Shut the fuck up.
Ah!
Give me
I
some
will beat
food.
no.
Queen just immediately running and the music's not even
Since I
going
died,
yet.
I'm gonna go AFK for 1 second, I'll be right back.
I'm out of cookies.
I've got some cookies in my chest over at the area.
I love a sock boy text.
Boom, 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 boom.
They're my favorite messages.
Oh, I didn't realize it was at the beat drop. That was so smart. that was so smart.
That's where we hit it last time too. I did the exact same thing.
That was so good. Damn.
Hey. Don't worry about it.
Can I have some shrooms?
Are we dealing shrooms
What do you mean?
now? Okay,
I
Yo,
have
yo.
I'm gonna go
that I
throw
can
this
trade for
sword
some
away.
shrooms.
I'll think about it. I'll get you some shrooms after this this event. Don't you worry. Just let me just remind me.
I'll go sleep. I like being funnily tall in bed.
Yeah, I want to see how Ray fits in beds.
I don't.
Wait, I've never seen that before.
I'm tall.
Oh, Queen, wait.
Okay, I'm back.
Wait, stay right there. You too funny.
Spreading your spores.
That's why I have a
bullets.
coffin bed, so you can't see my legs.
Yeah.
I usually just spread
I'm
my
gonna go
legs.
put this away.
I know, Levi.
I also have cookies
Gotta
for
put it in an
you.
item frame.
Who the fuck are you giving my cookies out to?
No, they're different cookies. I brought cookies to the event that were from home. Don't scoff at me,
Didn't outsource your cookies. I see what it is.
motherfucker.
I think cocoa beans are the only thing I can't grow in my area.
Why?
I don't have jungle wood and cocoa beans to start at.
Just ask politely and trade.
But I got everything else. I'm like, what's it called?
I've won
I'm
every
the
game
big
this
boss.
morning, and I am going to win another. What's up next?
All that we have left is
I like
the
honey.
hide and seek.
Hang on, I brought my own honey.
Sorry, listen, August, we're pushing me away from you.
Do we want to do hide and seek?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let me put my
Gavin,
honey
go.
So-
I
away.
have honey blocks.
So before we go in,
More honey per honey.
they're walking away. They're walking away. I'm gonna wait until we all get over here. Yeah, don't go in yet. Don't go in yet.
Don't go in.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
just so nobody's tempted. Oh wait, that won't stop you.
Ask me for honey. I've got 3 tons of honey.
Oh yeah, that won't stop you either.
I've got stacks of honey blocks.
Why do I have a shroom light in my...
Okay, so
Grow a shroom.
before we all go in,
Good point.
this is based off of. I wanted to explain that this is based off of these YouTube videos I used to watch called Hide and Go Gortame. I don't know if anyone here used to watch them or has heard me talk about them before. But they're from this guy who used to put videos on YouTube that stopped like years ago, Steven Suptic. And the whole premise, it was literally just regular hide and seek, but in a maze. And it was called Hide and Go Gortame because this guy had created this character that was supposed to be like super spooky, and he talked in this like deep, weird accent that he had created. And he would run in after a couple seconds of letting everyone else run in first. He'd run in with a sword. He was in creative mode, so they couldn't kill him. And he would one by one hunt them all down and kill them. So we run in. You have to set your brightness down to moody. All right. You cannot leave the maze. All the rules are up there, obviously. So if you forget any of this before we go in, just read it off the wall. Brightness set to moody. We don't have anything in our inventories. We're set to adventure, so we can't break anything, and we're not supposed to fight back.
How do I change my brightness? Like,
Game settings or video settings. Options, video settings, and then it should have brightness moody.
Right.
The whole point is it's supposed to be really creepy, and it's supposed to be a lot more difficult for us to see. I'm also gonna give... I didn't think about this until like a couple minutes before we all met up. But I'm also gonna give the hunter, since they're a little bit OP, I'm gonna give the hunter blindness so that they have a little bit more limited view. We have a way to get up onto the maze, but obviously please don't leave the boundaries of the maze. So like don't hop off and then run off to wherever you want to. And then we have like a very, very small parkour area underneath the maze with like lava in it. It's literally like 2 blocks, but the point is like you're running from a guy with a sword, so it's not extremely difficult, but it's meant to be like if he hits you, you might fall in the lava, or if you misstep, you might fall in.
Sounds hard enough.
Yeah. I didn't want to make it difficult, and I didn't want to make it like so easy it was laughable. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just make sure that if you have anything on you that you grabbed beforehand, put it away if you don't want to lose it. And I think for the first round, I'll be the hunter, just so it's easier for us. And yeah, make sure to do game mode adventure before we go in. What's up?
Wait,
So,
how do we
Oh my
win?
gosh, you shouldn't have.
We can't use our origin powers. I can't turn off my bite. It doesn't turn off.
You wouldn't be
You can't
hitting
fight
anyone.
back.
Yeah, you
unless
can't
were
fight
the
back.
hunter.
No, I'm saying as a hunter, I wouldn't be able to turn it off.
Well, that's fine. You're killing people anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
The sword is pretty much like one hit kill, so or it should be.
Adventure. Oh,
How,
never
how,
mind.
Essentially.
How are we meant to win? As like, can you win? Is that possible?
Survive until you're like the last person,
Okay.
or
Just
presumed
walking out
to be
here
the
today
last
with, like,
person.
20 levels, and no one's gonna say anything about that. I have
Okay.
not died once.
Do we get a head start or something?
Yeah, you get a couple second head start.
How do you regularly change your game?
You don't.
If it's not working, it's because other people are nearby the button.
Yeah.
You gotta go like up to the button and click it.
Where's the button?
Right here.
This button?
Wait, how are we gonna go back to survival?
Can't fucking read
August.
shit.
You.
Ow, stop! Funny attack.
Okay, I was just checking if I can still punch.
Yeah, you can hit people and use your origin power. You just can't break anything.
Yeah.
I can't turn the sting off.
Okay, I can still.
Hang on, I'm gonna go get some food. I'm gonna run
Trying to change my game mode.
Alright, I'm gonna break the wall, but I still have to give myself blindness, so just don't go in just yet.
Still working on changing my
Oh, come on!
I got someone's flower.
Slash
Who's told-
set
who's-
slash game rule do mob spawning off.
There we go.
Look, wait.
Can't put the flower down because I'm dead.
They're gonna spawn as long as somebody hasn't slept yet.
Yeah, who still hasn't slept?
I couldn't tell you, but maybe
I
me.
just
I've
slept.
They
Do
make
we
me
need to go
at-
Yeah,
through and make
let's go
do
back
a
to night.
for everybody?
Wait, does it does this if you don't sleep for 3 days? So doesn't that mean if we just do 3 nights?
It'll reset.
Oh
each
yeah, that
time.
won't.
We need a bed for everybody.
We'll be fine.
And
Alright, don't go in just yet.
Probably.
I like your cape.
How do I have an
Reminds
allium?
me of me.
When did I get an allium?
Wait, yeah, how do you have that as a cape?
I think I broke one when you ran by when I touched my egg.
Buddy, how'd you get your cape?
Optifine.
Yeah, you
Oh.
can have
That's
an
cool.
Optifine cape if you donate to them.
Yes, I figured you can pay, or you'd have to pay.
Someone gifted
Alright.
this to me.
Does everyone have their brightness set to moody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Not mentally,
Funniest thing
but
is
it's
this is very different. I have my laptop at 0% brightness all the time.
And go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,
Guys, get the fuck
3,
outta here.
2,
How do I get out?
1. Guys. Where'd you guys go?
Ah! go out! Ah! Get the fuck away from me! What the fuck was that sound effect?
That was like perfectly timed.
Sorry, Queen. I love the just cut off.
Oh, I have my stuff now.
Hey.
I'm already dead.
No, wait. Did I have my umbrella on? I might have my umbrella on.
The
Forgot
slow
about it.
burning.
I forgot an umbrella.
No.
Because we kept
I
cycling.
don't get to walk out of here with my levels.
I wanted my umbrella back.
August walked past me, and I got scared shitless.
Still on fire.
Was there a way out?
I was preparing to
No.
There's only the
No.
entrance, there's no exit.
Who had a baked potato and an allium on them?
Wait,
That
did we
was
keep
me.
going in?
No.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
wanted,
I was wondering why, I don't know.
I wanted my umbrella
Hello.
because I forgot
okay.
to put it in
I
the
have your
chest.
umbrella.
Yeah.
I got Levi's baked potatoes.
Hi.
Oh, thanks.
Hello, didn't I kill you?
I'm
Yeah.
still on fire.
Why are you here?
I'm looking for my
Realize I don't
levels.
know
My
why.
20 levels.
I'm
Ah,
assuming
somewhere.
I'm assuming I have them.
Can I have
she
them
ain't
back,
leaving
please?
without them.
I want to walk from the
Not unless
top.
you murder me.
I'm recording.
Alright,
so
hang
I'll
on.
watch
Where's
it all
the? I'm
later.
gonna get myself a beating stick.
Ugh. Who haven't I killed? Cool.
Alright. Let's go, cat. I'm
Motherfucker,
going
how do
to
I-
get my 20 levels
I
back.
think you killed Cool.
Yeah.
Did I get everybody?
On guard.
Yeah.
Get back
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Queen,
I'm
who-
Can I
getting
get
my
outta here,
20
though?
levels back.
Wait, why do I have a sword?
Queen, stop running away.
Because they keep pressing the button and you're
Get back
nearby
here.
it.
Get back here.
Oh.
Get back here.
Hello.
Hello.
Levi here.
Oh, thanks. I only brought a few in just in case I couldn't sprint, but yeah.
Thank you.
I has a pretty
I'm
flower.
gonna put this in. That's have to be.
I kept going in circles. I kept going in the same damn areas.
Wait, is Blitz still in there?
They sent a.
Oh, that's a good
Eight's-
point.
Eight's back in there doing something.
Oh no, Blitz is right here.
Yeah.
Who's being naughty? Ah, I fell in! Oh wait, fuck.
Oh.
Okay, we're good.
Scoop made a very bad one-liner, and it took me a second to process it because the situation.
Okay.
Oh
Last
my god.
brain.
Are we missing anybody?
Hey, get the fuck out!
I can't.
It's lost. No, 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 no.
Sorry, I'm
No,
trying to collect everybody.
No sleeping through the night, please.
There we go. Get back here.
Keep this allium. I'm gonna put
Alright.
it in my under chest.
Anybody we're missing?
8. No, never
No,
mind.
I'm here
eight's
now.
here. I got 8.
Oh,
I have a floater.
Hi.
Why is there a sword over
sometimes I don't see you. You're so short.
here?
Hey, that's impolite.
August,
Oh, the frog. Hi. Hello.
Funny, Blitz, August, 8, Cool.
I don't.
Queen,
Stop
and
pressing it.
myself. I think that's all of us. Oh, I forgot about Levi.
Right behind you.
Hey, buddy. Oh, sorry, Levi.
That's okay.
Dual
You didn't
wielding
drop any
diamond
food for me.
swords.
Do you
Yep.
need food?
Funny just one-shotted me.
The swords might be one hit if you make them netherite swords.
Oh,
True. Here, let me do that.
I know they're one hit if you do netherite sword enchantments, ID, sharpness.
8
level
is tiny.
155.
I think 8's the shortest one on the server right now.
yo, mama.
Can we please stop killing me?
Yeah, okay, I'm not
I
doing
was
that. Never mind.
talking to my chat, okay? They
Yeah, but
pointed
you
out
called
that
me
8 was
short.
tiny. They said 8 was tiny, and I said I think 8's the shortest in the server.
It
Wait,
just feels like never
Stating
ending.
a fact.
Magic.
Hello.
Couple.
I broke
wait,
the
I'm
button for
shorter
now.
than Queen?
Yes.
I thought Queen and I were the same height.
No, Queen's a little bit taller.
Embarrassing.
Damn.
Alright, who wants to be the hunter next?
Me.
Me.
Okay.
I'm a spider.
I don't trust Funny to be the hunter for some reason.
Alright, Cool can be murderer next. Oh, that's the okay, I'll use that then. Can you put that in Discord?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm really cool. That's why I'm short, actually. I'm just cool.
Bless you.
Oh no!
Ah,
I just wanted to see what that would do.
If my Discord can stop lagging, that'd be great.
I'm actually extremely tall in real life.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
There we go. I put it in Discord.
Awesome. Thank you.
Damn, that sucks.
Okay. Okay, that and the butt and then boop. Wow. Okay, cool.
Yes. Yes, Queen.
Here. Take that sword. That sword. Button. Go button.
Everybody back away from the button.
Oh my god. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna give you...
Sorry.
No.
Actually, it's turning daytime.
Ah.
I need to eat something.
Autism.
Just say autism at me.
I have autism. That's what I said.
Oh. Okay, I also have.
Sun,
I have
please.
a headache.
God damn it,
It's been
8.
hurting all.
Sun's not coming up.
Meow. Meow.
There we go. Okay.
Meow. So, there's a cat and they're like meowing.
I
at me.
really
Alright.
Oh, damn.
Everybody good?
I don't just think you have autism.
What'd you do?
Scoo. I know you have autism.
Everybody good?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to run in before everyone else because they scared me last time.
Alright, whenever you're ready, 8.
Go.
Ah!
10, 9, 8. Hey, that's me. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yippee! Da 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 la bumpa. Da 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 la bumpa.
I'm so turned around.
La bumpa. Funny you cannot
There's a
escape
sheep.
from La Bamba. La
I
da
want a
da
bright sheep.
da da La Bamba. La di da di da di da
I
La
was hoping that they'd get distracted by Cool and I'd be able to run.
La di da 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 La Bamba. La di da di da La Bamba. La di da di da da La Bamba.
Jesus.
Okay, I think that's everyone.
La Bamba.
Cold-blooded murder.
No, because it's funny. Because you hear them getting
Funny.
I had the whispering mode on too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
What does that do?
It makes me ever so slightly quieter, and my range shortens ever so slightly.
I was flying above watching and just seeing you get closer and closer to people singing La Bamba.
Who did
No,
that?
all of our spawns!
Okay.
Put it back, put it back.
Good thing
Everyone
I
said-
can't, I'm in adventure
we
mode.
can't, we're in adventure mode. August has to fix it.
Explosions.
My gosh, guys. If only I was down there to scare the creepers away.
I
Who
still
we gonna
can't, I can't
call?
fix anything because I'm still in adventure mode.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, great and glorious kitty cat. Please
Kitty
come
meow
help
meow.
us.
Oh, kitty meow meow.
No, kitty meow meow, we have
There's
friskies.
gonna be zombies that spawn into that because that's still 2 blocks tall. About it.
And?
Don't give a fuck. They're
Food now.
beneath the dirt.
Ow.
Bet.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm convinced
I'm gonna put it with the other
that
one.
every
Now I have
part of this is
2
a den.
alliums.
I feel like I've gone down every path so far and I've gotten nowhere. I'm scared.
There's
Do you still have the blindness?
Me?
No. when
Yeah.
when would you have had the blindness?
I don't know, that's why I was worried. I'm like, no, I never got it!
Hey, are you still blind?
Yeah.
Come here.
No.
Hey.
It's my life now.
Hey.
What?
Hey, square
Are you
up.
back in the maze?
Hey,
Maybe.
square up.
Motherfucker.
Square up.
Maybe I'm having a bit of fun in here. You don't know. The bomba. Oh.
Ah,
I was in my menu.
I was killing a zombie
I
for
just
you.
saw a zombie and I swung.
I'm not a zombie.
Thanks for being racist towards me, I guess.
No problem.
It's prejudice. Hey, baby.
Hey, BB, how you doing?
Baby.
Stop!
Baby.
Why am I being bullied? Is it because Elias isn't here anymore to bully?
Yeah.
Segregation of the tall.
I have a present. Who wants it?
I'm not even tall in real life, I'm average height.
Oh, I have a
so
present.
short
I'm
during my-
extremely tall in real life.
Who wants a present? You want a present?
Wait, I just realized I was muted.
Uh-oh.
Hey, get
As
rid of
I
your
was
swords.
saying, I just
What?
run around hitting.
Oh
and
no, I
Ray's
fell
big.
in again!
Get rid of them. Hi, Blitz.
Ray's just too big,
Oh.
so I hit them by accident,
Thank you.
and then I go after their knees.
Damn it, hold on. Get out of here.
Cool, you're next.
Can I have the murder
What?
Cool,
stick?
stop walking away.
Oh.
August, I'd like to have the murder
Not
stick
climb the
next.
wall.
You can
I'm
have it
not.
after cool.
Yeah, murder stick.
I feel like everyone should get one turn being the hunter.
You should
Yeah.
put a ladder on the side so the rest of us can watch from the top.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Let me do that in a second.
Scoot just called me a fucking bottom in my own Twitch chat.
Ow.
The
shoe fits.
Uh,
I should pull up other people's streams.
all right. The ladder is right here. Okay.
I need a ladder.
No, you don't.
I fell in.
You can jump up.
I can't jump up that many blocks.
Almost suck.
Hi, Levi.
I've seen you jump up that many blocks in one of your
Not
streams.
5! Thank you. I'm gonna do it again.
Oh my god. We're about to
Oh.
All right.
No!
Who are we missing? Who are we missing?
Why do you
Miss-
keep dying?
Are we missing anybody?
Do you keep hitting me?
Oh my.
What?
Yeah, but you're not. You shouldn't be dying that quickly.
Why
Yeah,
do you
you're-
have?
you're-
Why are you
you're
one punch
barely
man?
doing one-
Okay.
I had to reset my spawn point.
Wait.
Ow!
Hungry.
Why are you
We
One
need to
Punch
grab
Man?
some daylight
I don't
for you.
know.
All right, everybody here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
Maze. Why am
Yeah.
I here, TNT?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Cool's mic. That's not TNT.
Question mark?
All right,
Cool's headset isn't the best.
everybody get ready.
is
We're going
Vines?
back in.
Okay.
What?
Have a good day.
Okay.
Who's killing?
Okay.
I am.
Cool's murdering
boy.
this time.
Okay.
He's gonna
You
come
wanna
for me
see?
first, and I know it.
Whenever you're ready,
I
Cool.
am. Go ahead.
Oh.
4, 3, 2, 1. Here I come. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun.
Oh no, this is a dead end.
Dun, dun,
I fell in. Kill me.
dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun, dun,
I
dun.
fell in. Thanks to 8's mycelium, I can see where the beginning of the thing. Oh, there's also that.
Dun,
Oh, that's because
dun,
somebody fell in earlier. There's now ladder.
dun. I'm coming for you.
What the fuck?
Oh.
Damn.
Come back here.
Oh, he's trapping people in cobwebs.
Yeah, that's his origin power. He can't turn it off.
Cool being ever so
Motherfucker
quieter and
funny!
sounding so calm is like really scary.
Funny, you son of a bitch! I will never forgive you! I will never forgive
I'm so confused.
you! You rat bastard!
Exactly. Hey, I'm normal again.
Whose
Oh.
bucket is this?
Oh fuck.
Mine.
Oh fuck, it's daytime. It's
Did
daytime.
anyone
It's
else see
daytime.
that? Did anyone else watch Funny do that?
No.
Hi,
Oh my god.
again.
She
Did they just
led.
kinda creep?
No, she led Cool right to me.
Yeah.
Damn.
Sorry, I was dying to the flames of the sun.
Oh, my
That's-
condolences.
Painful.
How do you get to the parkour area?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this maze out right
think
now.
There's a
Wait,
hole
is
missing.
hang on!
Oh, I found it.
Is there anybody
Right here.
left?
There's a ladder down.
Oh.
Ooh.
I'm stuck somewhere.
Yeah, but hang on. Hang on. How do you
Oh,
get to the
no.
other part of this maze?
Is there anybody?
Oh, no.
I'm
No, fuck.
confused.
Because that's a dead end. Oh, wait.
I'm
I need to go
lost.
grab a new umbrella.
Okay, so forward.
Oh, I just ladder clutched.
I'm lost.
Go this way.
How'd you guys get over here?
Oh.
Oh, goodbye. How'd you get there?
This has the advantage of not having a mic on.
Yeah, you gotta like hold your breath, otherwise they can hear you directionally.
Yep.
Hot.
No,
It's
actually,
taking me so much to not laugh during
I'm
a lot of it.
purposely making sounds.
Actually, there's a way to turn off directional audio for the voice mod. I have it off. It
Yeah,
says-
but
I
directional
purposely
audio makes it
sabotaged
fun.
8 just by fucking...
I think.
Just by fucking? Wow.
Whoa.
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 I turned it off. because
Okay,
I
hold
lost-
on there.
I would
Oh
not
boy.
let other people
I'm
die
not.
to be
You already
honest.
killed me. I just fell in.
Kill me.
I know we
kill
have
me.
one way over here. I'm gonna give us one more, I think.
How'd you get to the parkour? Oh, there.
Whoa! Hey!
Hi. I'm giving us one more way over here.
That might be a little easier, yeah.
Yeah, we had one direction over to the rest of the maze, but I'm gonna give us 2 rows.
I'm still lost.
No, I'm absolutely gonna
But now I
die
have
into
more
parkour if I
options.
fall down there again.
It's not too hard parkour, I say.
I made it out.
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 I love that you can see the marks of where 8 has
I
been
like
climbing up onto the top of the maze.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No.
Your little mycelium blocks at the bottom of the ladders.
You're crazy. That wasn't me. That
Yeah,
was
John.
Jonathan.
This isn't even my stuff.
John
Oh.
the Panther?
Immediately.
John Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, John
I'm
man.
lost.
I put him in my pocket.
Hooray!
Hey, yo!
How many dandelions can I get for 11 rotten flesh?
12.
I don't have any dandelions on me. I gave you a stack earlier.
Wait, you did? I only got sunflowers.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, I gave you 64 dandelions and 5 sunflowers.
Oh.
My cat is just laying so behind me.
Good for
Are you still trying to get them?
Oh no. I'm lost.
I have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back, gamers.
Have fun.
Okay.
I will.
Good.
I love pissing, my third favorite hobby.
Rotted away while trying to escape rotators.
Ray, I do not see
The
any
poison.
dandelions.
That's
Yes.
fitting.
There are. You did not give me dandelions. Or
I
someone
did.
told
Aw.
me.
Oh, it's right there.
Someone probably
I
took
gave you
them, honestly.
dandelions earlier. They might have been cleared out by, like, the thing. But they shouldn't have, unless somebody else picked up the
Whoa!
dandelions I threw
I
them
think
at
someone
you.
else picked them up because I put everything I have into one barrel.
Anyone has 64 dandelions, they're funnies.
Nah.
You said you want to go next, right, Funny?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go after
I'm
funnies.
so ready to commit
Okay.
murders.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying this.
It's maybe because a lot of us
So many
have
murders.
viciousness to us.
I'm slowly adding
I'm gonna-
everybody to my chatterino. I'm stuck. Yeah, it's an external thing that I can pull up Twitch chat with, so I can have it on my screen. It's
I know
very
we've been
weird.
slowly creating little lore bits, by the way. I know we have like the what is it? Photos and memes chat. You guys should throw little lore bits in the regular Kingdoms chat so that I can compile them and make
Okay,
us a
who
wiki
has 4
page.
different spy glasses?
Yeah, I've been throwing little lore bits into the photos and stuff.
Yeah, I want to compile them because I
Which one of
think
y'all
it's
has
cool
4
and
spy
fun.
glasses?
Can you say that again? I didn't understand.
Which one of y'all has 4 spy glasses?
Not that. The.
I
No,
just have
'cause
one.
whoever does has funniest dandelions. I found them. They're in a barrel with 4 spy glasses.
Whoa.
I don't know.
I'm gonna go take those.
I don't know.
What are we doing? With
But throw whatever little lore bits that we've created so far. Like, you know how we were talking about the like ASL lore for Blitz. Throw like little things like that in Kingdoms chat or in the like photos and memes channel. And I'm gonna compile them and do like a wiki page or something.
What about important info? Or does that not make sense?
You can do that too, just like
That's where all our lore is right now, and it just seems more organized. But I guess it depends.
yeah, you can do that too.
Okay.
Just as long as it's like tagged with the lore tag.
Yes. Fancy.
Cause
stuff that I don't know.
cause I'd like genuinely find that stuff like really fucking fun and cool.
I put it
How
into
do
the
I
main chat for
tag
now.
things?
I'm so glad I don't pay my taxes.
When you make the post, it's at the bottom of the post. There's like a little
Oh, edit tags lore. Okay, all my stuff is
yeah.
tagged as
Hi,
lore.
Cloudy. Wait, fuck,
Yeah.
this isn't my mute.
We need to make a whole Kingdoms SMP wiki. Gotta have characters and shit.
That's what they
Mhm.
were just saying.
Yeah. That's what I want to try to do at least.
It's gonna be fun because we're very small.
Power raid burps.
When do I get to murder
I'm not
people?
gonna hit you.
We're waiting for 8 to get back.
Okay.
8 had to take a
I'm
piss.
gonna have a sip of my
8's a
energy
little
drink.
piss boy.
We
Oh, piss
know.
boy.
Fucking piss, baby.
A little piss baby.
Oh. Scoot clipped us trying to read the name earlier.
I might steal that.
Ooh,
That was horrendous.
MCPR.
I was genuinely trying to read it, but the panda kept moving and shit kept getting in the way of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. I've got everybody's who I can find their Twitch added to my chatterino.
Woo.
Woo.
Yippee!
Oh, while we wait, I'm gonna look at the
I'm gonna make
screenshots.
that a redeem one day.
Hi.
You're back!
Welcome back,
Piss
bitch.
baby's back.
You ready to get killed?
Hi.
Hi.
Who the fuck's echoing?
It's your mama.
Up.
I'm going to drive a knife through your chest.
I'm going to
God.
drive. Brr, brr.
Listen, if you manage to drive it through just well enough, I think I'd enjoy it. This is
Okay,
a trans
Cap.
joke.
Oh.
Cap.
Hmm.
I would like.
I
to
have
roll
a
the
slight
chest.
predicament. If we
What?
want to make
Same.
if we want to make the Flower King canonically colonizers, I'm fucking broke.
I mean, so is
Slowly
Britain.
Give me
True.
more money.
True.
Give me more money, and I'll
Ex-colonizers.
do the colonizer lore.
Oh, cool. Here.
I mean, you gotta threaten people for that. That's what colonizers
Yeah.
do.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll
But
up
not
to someone
today. You have to
in
do
full
it like
diamond.
some other day.
Like
Schedule
full
a lore
netherite.
stream with something. different.
Schedule some
Colonize
colonization.
Schedule your colonization for a different day.
Pencil it in for Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. Can I not?
I'm imagining getting
Queen in my chat.
contacted as like, hey, do you mind if I come over and colonize you?
Hi, we're calling about your colonizer's extended warranty.
Alright.
Who is this?
What?
Oh,
Well,
that's
That's impolite. That's
was,
that's
actually.
impolite.
Damn.
Oh, stop that. Fuck you, fucker. You do not. Where the fuck did... Where are my cookies? I need food.
The genuine where the fuck?
Give me back my umbrella, please. Blix. I need to put that in my chat.
Ooh, who gave me these baked potatoes? This is a tribute. I will spare you. Whoever gave me these baked potatoes.
probably picked up mine. I've been dropping some.
Thank you for the uwu, queen.
Thanks, Queen.
Yeah, we've
Everybody's
just been
chat
uwooing
is
in my
lives.
chat since, like...
Uwu.
Uwu.
I meant for that to be
Ew.
lowercase, but
Ada.
I have Scarlet, Cool, August 8, Ray, Blitz, and Funny in my chatterino right now.
Hey!
Damn.
Hey!
Can you make us all fight for the death?
So,
I may only have 8 followers.
Fight.
This
Levi,
is
I don't
literally
know
my,
your
Fighting?
Twitch.
Fighting?
Eh,
Fighting?
when I'm
no
streaming.
spaces.
Ah!
I heard fighting.
I think I'm following everyone already, because I did like that.
Where are you?
Everyone got
I'm going to
announced.
get you.
Yeah, mom.
There you go. You get a capital.
Why did you do the
Uwu.
emo bangs emote?
Thank you, I do not.
Are you emo?
Whoa. Damn.
It's like hitting a fucking pinata, except the pinata are all of my friends.
Say what, Scoot?
You already got 8 and you just got him again.
I'm going to the maze now. I'm gonna
Yeah,
start
everybody
getting-
ready?
Yippee!
Yeah. Kitty.
Oh, who the fuck
What is
took
it?
those?
What is-
Levi, maze time.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Already.
okay.
Already.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if
Who's
it's by the
hunting?
parkour area.
Funny.
Oh,
Funny, who's been killing all of
Funny,
us.
where you going?
good boy.
I can't see.
Fun.
This is really without my
This
glasses.
way
Follow the
funny.
sound of our
For this way
voice.
funny. This way-
Follow the sound of boys?
Yeah. You like
I mean, that
boys,
also
do you?
works.
Boys!
There's like one,
Auga!
two,
You like
three,
You can follow him if you like him, I
four and
guess.
a half boys over
Alright.
here.
If you want him.
Alright, y'all's go in. I'm gonna start counting.
Whee!
1, 2,
I went in
and the
backwards.
3, and the 4, and the 5, and the 6, and I'm breaking a sign, and the 7, and the 8, and the 9.
Yeah.
Boys. I don't have a funny sound. I just killed Blitz like 3 times, what the fuck?
It was your cooking, I didn't see her. Marcus found the
I fucking heard that. Where I fucking heard. Where are you? I'm going to get you. I have you know I have over 116 confirmed kills from my time in the Marine Corps.
August found
I
the
have
parkour
every
area,
fucking
was what I was trying
weapon
to say.
available from the US arsenal. I forgot this copy
I think
pasta.
I'm confusing funny because I'm already dead. And I'm above the mics. But I'm talking.
Oh,
Hello.
I'm glitched. I have.
Oh no.
My visual's glitched. It's visually saying that I still have poison.
Wait,
no, it's
hang on, I
you.
can't make that jump. Okay, yeah, no, I can't make
It's
that
doing the
jump.
same with me with the lava.
Yeah, my death visuals have been
They're
glitched
just
out.
visual glitches. They'll disappear if you relog, or they should.
Aw, poor
Hello,
Blitz.
person.
Hey, Blitz keeps on running into me. That's not my fault.
Hey, Funny. Funny, follow the sound of my voice. This way. Come over here. Perfect. I just ran
The fucking
wall.
Taco Bell.
Ooh, cow.
Y'all should make some noise for my massive gong.
Your massive
I'm
cock?
hit my massive gong.
Your massive cock?
My massive gong. Are you ready?
Your massive cock?
My massive
Whoa,
gong.
put it away!
And I fell.
We all make
Nice
some noise,
balls,
so
bro.
we get it.
Slaps them.
So how does a hider win?
Honey, kill me. I fell in.
Hide long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no
You
fucking-
hide so long that it's annoying.
People have just been like studying the maze, and now I have no clue where anyone is.
Hell of a place.
Damn, I was so close.
Yeah.
I need to play more fine.
Hi,
Hang on.
zombie.
What's like a
We're gonna have a fist fight.
non-copyright music I can play?
Wow.
That's copyrighted. Owie!
I just realized my
You
music hasn't been playing
fuckers.
this entire time.
Ooh, rest in peace.
I'm gonna
I
use
don't
this
play music.
redstone
Oh
torch.
gosh, I have so many death points that I need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Hang
You're
on,
all
no, I need
alone in
something.
the maze.
Yeah,
You're all alone in the maze. There's no
I
one
gotta take a
else.
shit so bad.
Okay, hang on.
Go.
No, because I'm gonna win first.
Oh, okay. When I finally go over to the water is when my death glitch leaves.
No, I'm still in.
What?
Who went to sleep?
Who killed me?
Who hasn't been found yet?
Levi.
Oh, for fuck's sake. listening. I'm listening. There's someone this way, this direction. Oh wait, that's just Blitz
No lo
again.
siento. No lo siento.
Nice. Good one.
I swear to God.
Were you
he
down here
was
when
gonna
I
be, like,
died?
doing the
I
thing
followed
where
you
you
down
hide
there.
in the
Hello.
lava.
I didn't
but-
see you die. I followed you after.
Oh,
and the thing
okay.
went, like, I can't reach because I don't have the sprint.
I stuck.
You said you saw me die or no?
I didn't see you die. I was
Oh.
following you.
It was
down
from
here, but-
it was from there to there.
It's a rough one.
Cause I kept. Oh wow, that was horrible lag. The way that they died was so horrific. Looking for me. But yeah, when I was doing this, I kept jumping and pausing, so I didn't have the boost for this. Well, I mean, you could do it without the boost, but I literally fell like right in. I
feel like this is
right
our
in
version
this
of
gap,
what's it
right in
called?
between them.
What's it
Hello.
called?
Make it.
There's a whole movie where it's like
Oh no, I
on this one
slipped.
day.
I gotta take a shit, man. I gotta take a shit real bad.
Yeah, does
You
this mean I win?
won! Yeah, good job.
You win.
Okay, I'm
We
going
really
to
should have set like a timer for the
little bit.
hiders.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. We could do that too.
What?
Probably should.
I got stuck.
Doing a timer for the hider so that way like you can actually win as the hider.
I know my way out. See? I found the way out.
Oh, he's got sunflower on his head.
Who?
The skeleton.
Oh. Not for me. I think that's one of your texture packs.
No, it is. It is. I knew it was.
Still in the maze, right?
I was about to be like, I have a sunflower on my head, but I got two of them.
Yeah, the better vanilla building texture pack gives the skeletons like flowers on their head, moss, stuff like that.
We're just waiting for Levi to come back now. Now my...
Playing leapfrog.
Yeah, I found my way out.
Oh, proud of you.
Playing leapfrog.
Oh, I forgot. We're the white hair streak gang.
Oh, wait.
I'm very tall.
I'm also canonically blind
Blitz is cool.
in my right eye.
Blitz is cool in my
I'm
book.
canonically
Whichever
falling
eye,
to pieces.
whichever eye. My left eye, sorry. Whichever eye is
Yeah, your left
dimmer.
eye.
I will
Fun
take
fact,
out your
for
right
most
eye
people,
too. Where
the
are you?
left eye is actually worse than the right eye. That's just like a thing.
I can't
My
see,
left
so
eye's
I'm just gonna keep on.
Yeah, I
stabbing
think my left is worse than my right.
I don't know mine.
Not by much, but a little bit worse.
5.5 in my left, negative 4.5 in my right. Since the last
I'm
time.
500.
Throw anything.
I'm negative
That's
4
not-
point. I'm
would
negative
be
4 point
blind.
something in both.
They told
But
me
it's
I'm
like a
500.
very
2
slight
inches
difference.
in front of me.
They
Oh,
told me I'm 500.
Can you kill me, please? I'm starving.
Oh wait, you don't use the American eyesight system.
No.
I
What
don't
the
know
fuck's
what my
an
eyes things
eyesight
are. I
system?
just know they're really bad and one's worse than the other, and I need glasses.
Yeah.
Like how we
Pull up to
use,
the-
So
like how we use a
negatives
certain
are
system.
nearsighted, positives,
That seems
farsighted.
odd.
And like every 0.25 is a little bit worse. So being like negative 5 is actually pretty bad. Like I said, I can't see very far in front of me.
Yeah,
I
mine's
can't even see my laptop
negative.
screen without my
Funny.
glasses on.
Actually, I could look. I think I
Hi
have
guys,
the
I'm
paper like right
back.
here.
Hello, we're talking about bad eyesight.
Oh, I got that.
You got a lot
Do
of
you know what your
things.
prescription is?
Do I know what my prescription is?
Yeah.
No. I have an astigmatism. So I
I
don't.
also
I
have an
don't
astigmatism.
know. I don't know exactly what it is.
Funny.
I know one eye's fine. so
Funny.
it's-
All of a sudden, my voice.
Oh god.
Funny just
Who's going
wanted
this
to
time?
escape. Can I go?
Yeah.
No, I asked to go after Funny.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Who wishes for the blade?
And then Queen can go. Give it to Ray.
Ray needs
Am
the
I on
blade.
fire to you guys? Cause my
Have the other
No.
one too.
You're fine. Hold on. I'm
Both of
going real loud.
August, can I be able to see again?
Yeah, I've been doing that for everybody. I just have to do
Oh, I
other
have
commands as
resources
well.
now, I forgot.
Hey, ho, ho.
Yippee!
I still can't see.
Oh, yep, now I'm blind. Okay.
Bunny, stay still.
Oh, my yippee better TTV emote is still Christmas.
I need to make a Yippee,
Do I have a yippee?
like, emote redeem.
I just added it through the better
No.
TTV thing.
Yep.
All right.
Send
So
me a
what
link
was
that
the
way.
timer idea?
What?
We had a timer idea.
Yeah.
For like a few minutes, so that way
How long are
people
we
can
thinking?
outlast the seeker. Dude, what the
I
fuck?
killed the hunter.
I need to be killed.
I need to be
I
reblinded
can't
now.
sprint. Can you kill me, please? Thank you.
There we go.
And what's the timer for us going in?
For if none of us
5.
are killed in that amount of time, then we win instead of
Yeah.
the seeker.
Oh, okay.
Like traditional hide and seek, where, like,
Does someone else want to set the timer?
I can do it. How much?
Okay.
How long was I in there last time?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Do you think I'd be able to do it in 3 minutes?
Let's
4
let's try a
I
minute.
feel like 5 is fine.
Oh.
5 sounds reasonable.
I don't
know, I
think
feel like it's-
anyone
I-
would be able to get it done in a minute. Unless
Okay.
you're as
It seemed
trigger
like it
happy
was
as
longer than
Funny.
it was, though. At least that's what it feels like. How about 2 minutes?
That should be fine.
Please
Okay.
stop hitting
I don't know how to judge it because I know it's different
Yeah,
playing
that's
it
why,
versus
like,
versus us fucking around on our
Yeah.
side.
We'll try it this time and then see if it's any better or worse.
Yeah, don't.
It's turning daytime.
Who's the person this time?
Ray.
Okay.
Hi, Mr.
Alright.
Zombie.
Is it still daytime? I can't
No.
tell.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Beep beep beep. Ray, can you go kill
We're
that
going.
zombie?
I don't know where he is.
Here,
Follow
follow
my
me.
voice. La 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 la
Follow me.
la 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 la
La,
la.
No, not the
La
Christmas.
la 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 la
There we
la
go.
la 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 la.
No.
Okay.
Am I really
Alright.
taller
Have you-
than you?
Tell us when.
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Scoot, you should get your glasses. Everyone should get their glasses re-prescribed about every 3 years. Because your eyes change as you age.
Oh,
I've
it's
had mine
been
for almost
it's been a
exactly
while.
year.
I've
I
had
don't
mine
know
for
how
over
long
3
I've had
years, and now
these.
they're causing migraine, so I have to get new ones. Okay.
I've had
that should
these
be
glasses for maybe a year or two, but they're the same prescription as my last pair. They're just
Where's the
new
parkour?
glasses.
Up your butt.
Around the corner.
Dun, 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 dun. Nah. Trying not to get copyright chicken. Challenge
Trying
difficult.
to be funny while stuck in a room. There isn't much more to say about it.
The scream gets me
That was
every
not me.
time.
I could say that much. I haven't found a single fucking person.
Funny found the parkour.
See what happens.
What? Get back here.
No!
I'm watching this. I'm watching this. Come on.
Oh, I lost.
Oh.
I'm so sorry, Blitz.
Why do I...
I'm so sorry, Blitz. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, because Funny has poison effect, like I do, so you guys might get particle effect from me as well.
Purple.
Blitz, why the fuck are you back in here? Oh, that's the
Followed
answer.
me around even after he died last time.
20 seconds left.
Oh, no, yeah, no.
I see people.
Blitz, stop coming back in.
No.
Well, 8's dead.
No.
Ow.
Cap,
Yeah.
can I just like drop in and start beating the shit out of Ray?
Don't.
I know something better.
You be.
Timer's off.
Yeah.
How do we feel about
Alright,
that?
that means I'm allowed to go in.
Hi.
Woohoo! I survived!
I can't see anything.
I feel like that was.
Yeah, I feel like that was appropriate. Cause wait,
Yeah, I feel like that was good.
It's like cat and mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
This way, like, some people can still be got, and there's a chance to get everyone, but like.
Yeah. But then we're not just sitting around waiting, too.
Well, fuck, now I'm stuck in the maze.
Hey, get the fuck out of here.
I'm
I
lost.
fell in.
I'm lost.
Good job, Levi.
Shoot the creeper, shoot the creeper.
I think you've already had the trick that I wanted.
Wait, I found
Oh.
the
That was
ladder.
I made it out.
I like buttons.
Can I be the killer?
Wait, I want to be the killer.
Oh, Scoot, your eyesight's really not bad. That's like reading glasses level.
Is that you muttering that, Levi?
Yes.
Stop
Okay.
reading.
Give the sword.
Whoa. Hello? Why do I have the sword again? Hello? Mr. Policia? I would like to report a criminal. Hello? Hello? Hello?
I messaged you something.
Milk.
Milk. Apparently this is why I'm autistic.
Ow!
Milk?
Milk.
Yeah, same.
Is everybody ready?
Did you see my second message, Funny?
Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I hope you said shut up.
I did. I said exactly that, actually. How'd you know?
Said stop
Hello.
it, you Welsh.
Cap, did you
Welsh.
see my DM on Discord?
Wait, no Welsh. I don't fucking know. Colonizer accent.
I love that.
Oops!
Okay.
Oh no!
Whoa!
Whoa! Alright, where the fuck is Levi? I get over here. No.
Ah!
Oh.
I got stung!
The bee does it again.
Okay,
Fuck
so
you, slow falling. Yeah!
I need...
La 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 la
Please.
la
Scream
la
like
la
that.
la.
I haven't been able to scream like that in years.
I haven't been able to scream like that since taking testosterone.
I wish
Ever
Alright, I
since
think-
started going to doctor-
Levi fully being bullied and beaten into a corner.
Yeah,
I
T
had to
just
go to the
fucks up your
doctor 'cause
vocal
they said my testosterone was too high and
Wait,
abnormal,
I have to
and
find
ever
a
since
meme,
then
hold
I
on.
have not been able to scream.
Oh.
At most I can do ah, but I can't scream.
Wait, tell that story
Ah.
again, I wasn't listening.
Ah.
So I have PCOS, which means as an AFAB person, I have too much testosterone naturally in my body.
Yeah.
So when my testosterone levels started spiking, I stopped being able to scream.
Yep, and
All
then
I could do was yell.
I as a also a fat person started taking tea, and now I can't scream and I can only yell as well.
Just shout
You just
yippee
go,
really
Ah,
loud. Exactly.
Yippee! It hurts so much
Guys,
when you
look
try
guys,
and
look at the
scream.
Discord.
Oh, my voice.
I look at the Discord.
Let me look at the Discord.
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 El gatito!
Oh, it's a baby! It's a little baby.
Wait, I like this one better.
I'm blinded.
Blabub.
I'm
You're blended.
cannot see.
Blimp.
Cat, can I be canonically one block tall so it's even funnier when I colonize people? There's like a tiny little guy rose up in fucking iron armor. Like,
For some reason, Cool's attacking me. I definitely
I'm
did
just
not instigate
extremely
this at all.
charismatic.
There is no proof.
You called me a bottom.
That's because
No
you
proof.
are.
What? No, you are.
Queen confirmed. Cool sneaker bottom.
No.
Hunter the Owl House.
Our house?
What?
I can't
Our
not
house?
wait for watching and dreaming. Ah!
I'll cry.
Same.
I want
But I'm
my
also so
ending.
sad because it's gonna be the end.
I'm so mad we didn't get a full season of this. This would have been
Fuck
amazing.
Disney.
True.
Fuck Disney.
I literally thought you
Fuck
just said
Disney.
fuck jizz.
Fiance.
Fuck
Fuck
jizz
jizz.
too.
Oh,
I hate jizz.
this is a terrible music genre.
Oh.
It's not even great jazz.
I was talking about cum.
Yeah, but I had to
I'm
make
sorry.
the pun with
Did
the
you say
Star Wars.
jizz is not a good genre? It's a great genre, okay?
I love listening to jizz.
Me plugging my thing into the jizz.
No,
No,
we're
we're
specifically talking
talking
about
about
jizz. It's space jazz in the Star Wars universe. Canonically, is called jizz.
Yep.
Wait,
Hey, jazz is best jazz.
100%. My boyfriend is a Star Wars weeb.
My mom's one.
My boyfriend is also a Star Wars weeb.
Aw, bestie!
It's been a long time since I watched
Get
Star
wrecked.
Wars.
I've watched like everything Star Wars has to
I'm
offer
just
at
watching
this point.
people slowly disappear into the darkness.
Oh yeah, because you're Hunter.
I
next,
was
so
all
we'll
an
just-
illusion queen.
Oh.
Oh.
What the fuck? I'm not blind
Blitz
anymore.
that.
Aw,
Yeah, you get unblinded when you die.
Wait, how is Blitz hurting me so bad?
Blitz, what's your powers?
they're hurting your feelings.
Oh. Jesus, whoa. Magic.
Was Blitz like just
Blitz is
hunting?
Canonically confirmed.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blitz is a fox. But I
Not
don't know
afraid
what
I've
the
been doing this
fox's
for 3
abilities
hours
are.
and I kinda need
What
to go
the-
I know
revise
what the
my
fox
exams. Can we
says.
please?
Ring ding ding ding.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Ring ding 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 ding. Aura!
What the fox actually says is more like
What?
Ten.
Can you
Foxes
stop hitting
sound
me,
like,
Cole? I swear to fucking God, next time I see you, you're gonna get smacked.
Pip, pip, pip. I saw the cat and I want the cat, but it keeps running away. I tried to get it quick, but it keeps going further and further away from the group. Where'd it go? Thank you for the resub. Please? Buddy, no! I have somewhere I have to be! Dude! My man. No. I have a game I have to go back to. Sir.
Bestie?
Hello.
Bestie! Ah!
Hi. No, kitty, please.
Oh, hi, kitty. Come back.
He keeps running away. I got him once. Do you see how far he's taken me?
Don't move. Stay right there. I'll herd him.
Okay.
No. Go that way. Go that way. Go that way. No, you're running towards me. That's not what you're supposed to do, scaredy cat. The fuck? You're supposed to be scared of me. Go away. Yeah.
Please don't stop in the grass. Bro. Yeah! Thank you. Alright, come on, bud. He's like, if I have to. Finally, thank you. Ugh, that took forever.
Oh, Pog.
Pug. Puggers. My little man. Come on.
Swords.
I gotta think of a fitting name for a scaredy cat.
Pussy.
Pussy.
Yeah, my girl.
Yeah.
Kitty.
El gatito!
Oh my gosh, we can have cat playdates now.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can have cat
I was
playdates
meant
with
to
me. I have
have
like 700.
Yay!
I was meant to
We
have
have
like
fungi.
a little here's who I'm playing with thing for my streams.
Come on, get up here.
It's not working, so it's just an
Sit.
empty twitch.tv link.
I don't know how to do any of that. I'm not cool.
Arigato.
El gatito. Yeah.
El gato. Yippee.
Levi
Oh.
spotted him and then walked away from him, but I as soon as I locked onto him, I was like, no, this is
I've got
mine.
so much fish at home for once I get more villagers and they start spawning cats.
Hi.
I want gato.
Katze is
Say hello
in,
to my
in
gatito
sucked.
blade.
Second.
Why do I have an inventory
Oh, bye,
full
Arctic.
of netherite swords?
Can you stab me?
Oh, I'll take that. Whoa!
Will do, Arctic, will do. I will commit crimes. Ouch.
Here, I guess you can have these. I don't know why I had so many.
It's because you're standing next to the
funsies.
thingy and people just kept clicking it.
Yeah. Hey, stop it!
Are we
What
starting
what
now?
happened? Huh?
Stop!
I'm not blind.
What did I
I
do?
can see clear.
Stop pressing the button.
What
My
button?
umbrella.
You're not innocent. I see
I
it.
know this button.
What's
Don't
the
do that.
It's
button?
over here. The umbrella's
No.
over here. Ray, the umbrella.
No.
I'm coming
Ray,
for the
I'll
umbrella.
give you the umbrella. You stay there.
No.
No,
My
stand
feet are
still.
stinky.
I have the umbrella.
No.
Umbrella? Umbrella! I guess have a sword.
Hey, Levi.
I have another.
Yeah, who, what?
Wait, what happened? I have swords!
Oh my god, 8!
Can we
It
make them
keeps
axes?
summoning
Axes are
swords to
cooler.
themselves.
There's 2 swords behind you, I guess.
No more. Yeah,
In
I
fact, I'm
chucked them.
gonna pop.
Okay. That could have killed my cat, and I would have been devastated.
I'm sorry, bestie. I could sing my swords on my diamond.
We're taking you somewhere safe.
Yeah. Take him over to the dance floor. He can start jamming.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Get the floor warmed up for us.
Queen,
Come on,
why are you
pussy.
continuously killing Cool?
There you go, pussy. This has become a murder party.
Alexa,
Scoot's-
how do you say
Scoot's more
sword in
fluent than I
Spanish?
am.
It's espada.
That doesn't sound right. Oh, it is Espada. Scoot
Espada?
has confirmed this.
You wanted to host for fall, right?
Yeah.
Right?
All my friends
Yeah.
are Mexicans.
I think one of our events should be a murder mystery.
Yes!
Like
I murdered everyone.
like you would do in real life, where you're like, I'm this person, and I
Like the
think
Clue.
this
We could
person
get to
did it.
roleplay while
Yeah.
role-playing?
Exactly.
Oh my
I was
god!
also already planning to do a maze, like a corn
Yeah.
maze. But I'd be doing it with like wheat blocks instead because we don't have corn in this.
Fun.
Are we going again,
Okay.
please?
Yeah, everybody who has a sword who isn't supposed to have a sword, get rid of the fucking sword.
Good.
And do not give them to me because I will throw them.
I'll hold them. I'll hold them for you guys.
No.
Ow.
Here.
There's a
Here.
skeleton!
Wait,
Lava.
Right there.
many swords.
Here.
Where's the
Come here.
lava?
What?
Turn around. Once you have all the swords,
Arrow.
turn around.
Adderall.
I cannot take Adderall
Sword
because it fucks
disposal
with my
plan.
depression and autism, but I got the 80s of ADHDs.
Wait, why they?
Oh, you shit. Dinner just got here. Okay, let's hurry up and play so I can go eat dinner.
Damn it.
Did you?
I wanted to jump right in. Damn it.
Blitz, don't do it. You have so much to live for.
It did it.
Oh, well, you guys not as much.
Oh.
Can you not even actually go in it? Can you not physically walk into it?
Ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
Shit, okay.
hold on. Yeah.
Little punch wanted you so hard. Bless you.
Sorry.
What? Why does Levi have a sword?
I don't know, someone just gave it to me!
Here. No. Wait. Give me the sword.
What?
Give me the swords.
I don't have it anymore. I threw it.
Okay. Okay, we're good.
Are we going?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm coming. Doo-doo. Oh, where's the hole? There it is. Doo-doo. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. La-dee-da-dee-da, la-dee-da-dee-dee. Ah! I see rays in the. August, I saw you. August, I saw you.
Ray Tater Tots.
Ray's in the parkour. I can tell that much.
I died. There's no way to do that parkour. I can't jump high enough.
Yes, there is. Just
No, there's not a way for me. I can't jump high enough.
I see someone. Oh shit!
too
I
tall.
found the parkour.
I keep hitting my head on the roof
Purely
and then
on
falling
accident.
into the lava.
I saw someone's name tag.
Spada. I know that there was someone in the parkour with me before I died.
go. Actually, I don't trust myself to do that parkour while blind.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I don't think you can actually do the parkour because you can't sprint.
Yeah.
But I'm
That's what.
shorter.
No, you can do it.
I did it multiple
I could not do it. Every time I try, I just instantly fail. There's a baby zombie riding a chicken outside.
I don't see anyone.
Die.
I'm trying my best not to look at my map.
Give me your flesh.
Why is that like
Yeah.
that? I don't know why that was like that.
Me your fucking flesh, bitch.
Time's up.
Oh,
Holy
damn.
shit.
Can someone get me out of here?
I lost.
No! You're staying there now.
No.
You're a prisoner of the maze now.
You're one with the maze. You love the
Is there
maze.
a baby zombie
You
in the
love
maze?
the maze.
Yes.
Why do you have a...
What? I don't have anything.
8 has a sword.
What are you doing?
No, I don't.
Hey!
8 has a sword.
What?
Why do you have a sword?
No, I don't.
I'm tossing.
Oh
my
damn,
swords.
go Blitz.
Me. To me.
Yep.
Damn,
That's
I'm canonically dead.
I thought you were gonna say gay, but that works too.
Question is she gonna rejoin? No. Okay,
Yeah,
good,
she's
good,
back.
she's-
I'm back from being
I can
canonically
eat raw
dead.
chicken without
Hi,
getting
guys.
salmonella, unlike you bitches.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, you're the only other.
Back up, Blitz.
My body grinds
Have
everything
fun
up.
eating dinner.
Blitz, no! I told you to back up.
Okay, who turn? Who turn?
My
Who
turn,
turn?
my turn, 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 my turn.
You're so excited.
Murder
I wanna
time?
kill people.
I'm gonna watch from above this time.
Okay.
What? You don't want
Alright.
me to kill you, bestie?
No. I'm terrified.
That's understandable. I'm a
I think
scared
Blitz
person.
also wants to take a turn, but
You're next. I go first.
me? Why do you have so many swords, Blitz?
That is terrifying.
Gonna get like
Ow!
Do not give them a single one,
I need an
please.
ally with Blitz.
I want 8 of them.
Hello, sir.
Look at the Enderman.
I need more.
Oh!
Waste.
Blitz.
Why'd you,
What the
why'd you
fuck?
look at him?
I wanted to look at him.
Let's come with me. Come with me.
I can't have autism if I make eye contact.
Now give me
Yeah,
more
yeah.
swords.
This is like a mugging.
Blitz.
Oh, the button's gone.
I will trade you all of the best foods.
My swords!
I have
Wait,
all of
these
the
don't
foods.
burn in lava. Can we get a cactus?
Oh shit, you right.
Why are they
I can get you
invincible?
one day.
What
Isn't
the
that
fuck?
why-
It's because it's netherite. It doesn't burn in lava.
Oh fuck.
Why did I not know this?
We need a cactus.
Yeah, hold on. Stop throwing
I don't have
them.
one dirt
Keep them
on me,
away
but I
from the
threw
psycho
dog
one.
Dirt at
It needs to
Okay.
be
full
in
earlier,
sand.
but I have like 2 chests full of dirt blocks right now. I'm undead. That's why I keep dying in the sunlight.
There. Okay.
I'm just gonna kill 8 again just to make sure there's no swords left.
Better be safe than sorry.
There's a new sheriff in this town.
Oh, can I have one sweet berry
Wow.
for 1 dirt block?
What a turnaround.
8 has
I'll
a
go and get
sword.
my dirt.
She
Oh my
sneezed
God.
herself to death back there. It was awful.
I don't believe that for a second. Come here.
Cool. Where's Cool? Cool.
Yes, hi.
Do you know the dirt I gave you?
Yes.
I have 1 block.
No.
Okay, let me go get it.
Mine.
Mia's
Why did you have 3?
What? It's a sword.
Who's getting the dirt for you, Blitz?
They call me the fucking psycho.
Still
And
true.
now I can check off sweet berries
They never
for my,
claimed I wasn't
achievement.
insane.
Oh my god. Okay. I don't think they have any more swords.
Okay, let's go.
Alright, is everybody over here?
I
I
hear
think.
Grandfather.
a queer.
What the fuck?
There you go.
Alright, everybody ready?
I have to be
Yeah,
blinded.
yeah, I had to make a
by the
quick trade
lights.
with Blitz.
No, yeah, I was just asking everybody else. I know I still have to do
I
your
think
settings.
I go after this one.
Ah! I'm so sorry. That was 100% involuntary. It was
Okay.
autism.
Alright. Everybody good?
I'll have to look at the TikTok later, Scoop, because I am streaming.
Freddy.
Wee.
Whenever you're ready,
We
Levi.
can go, we can go, can we go, can we go, Mom? Can we
Ready?
go?
Can we go? Can we go?
Go.
Can we go?
Yippee!
Let's get the fuck out of here.
One of
Blitz
us
isn't
can
going in the
air.
maze. Okay, here I come.
Wow,
Children
bold
screaming
Blitz
outside.
going in after?
Interesting strategy.
Uh-huh.
Wait, I wasn't using my sword! Cow strike!
Cow strike, you say? Cow strike coming in.
The fuck? Hold on. What the fuck? Why are there
Oh.
cows? What? Who the fuck's origin is cows? What the fuck?
Hi, Levi.
Who the fuck? Fuck you. Sorry to anyone who runs family friendly. What? Get the fuck back in the maze, Blitz.
So I can
Blitz,
do the
no
parkour
cheating.
one way, but not the other, apparently. No, no one's origin has anything to do with fucking cows. We don't got any minotaurs. Or
What the
Zeus's.
fuck is
Fuck.
Peter would not be happy.
So what happens when the hunter dies?
I guess this is
Where
why
the fuck did all the
everything.
cows come from? What was that?
I think that was August.
Why? America, explain.
A cow strike was called.
By
Yeah,
who?
I called a cow strike.
Why?
Because you were gonna kill me.
What?
So I called a cow strike.
It's like a bomb strike, but a
I
cow
know.
strike.
Yippee!
Free
I'm
food.
in the corner. Don't kill them.
I'm getting them off the maze. And unfortunately, that does mean poisoning them.
What?
I love that with my texture pack, they're all mushrooms.
Same.
I'm giving them poison mad cow disease.
And moo blooms. And all
Mine's-
pretty, pretty.
Mine are all
No
moo
need to
blooms. They shouldn't be mushrooms.
Yeah,
Seek help
I
if they're
forgot
mushrooms. That's my district.
District 13.
Yeah.
District 15.
17.
That's mine. Mine is District 15.
5!
4.
I
Two.
believe it's your turn by default anyways.
What?
Maybe? Unless school hasn't gone?
It is.
What happens at 0?
I think Blitz
What
wants
does
to do
happen
it
at
now.
0? And
Yeah,
how do I
go
get
away.
out of here?
Oh, jeez. Got a bit of a lag spike. Alright, let me clean this up.
Who's the only one that hasn't gone? Not cool.
How did you get another one?
It was.
Don't play dumb.
Yeah!
You just picked them all back
Oh,
up.
wait, no,
Blitz.
no, 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 no. No, 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 no,
See?
no.
See?
They're the cactus.
Ah!
Throw them into the cactus. That's how you.
8 foot sword in the fucking.
Not
No,
yourself.
I didn't.
The,
In the
the
fucking
swords.
fucking.
In the
Chest.
fucking?
The swords into the cactus splits. The swords.
8-foot swords in
You
there.
sure about that?
E-chest.
Nuh-uh.
Yes, you did.
Nuh-uh. Do you want a
What's
screeny
you-
of my e-chest?
Yeah.
Oh
Alright,
shit.
we'll take
Oh,
your
oh, they
inventory
running.
too.
Oh, they running.
Whee! I love how I'm canonically like 7 foot. And it gives me all the back problems too, bitch.
Does this mean if I'm short, I get less back problems?
Nope.
Oh.
If you scrunch or stretch a spine too much, you get back problems. You need a perfectly average height to be good back. And good genetics to be good back. And good habits to be good back. It has to be all three. Because I'm average height IRL, but I got back problems.
Alright.
Who's Jimmy?
Take it easy.
Exactly. See, I'm an innocent man. I didn't do a thing.
Jimmy.
I just watch you hit that button.
I didn't hit the button.
You're such
I heard
Hit the button.
Click it.
No, you did not.
Okay. I caught it.
If anyone that likes meat wants to come in here and kill these cows, they can keep
I
the
don't
food.
eat meat.
I will cook the meat.
I
for
morally
Elias
don't
later.
eat meat.
I need a.
That's
I
a
need
baby.
I
I can't
don't
kill
believe
a
you.
baby. I can kill adults, but I can't kill a baby.
Alright, now I'll come.
Oh, hello.
Oh my god, Ray, the heartless monster.
Ow. Sorry, I was.
I will
pulling my
orphan
ribs
these
out.
kids, but I'll leave the orphans be.
I'll orphan these kids.
The worst
What
thing
the fuck?
happened to these orphans.
Yeah, I'm the second worst thing to ever happen to these orphans.
No, you
What's
can
the
be the
what?
third.
I mean, you're the first worst thing because you're the one orphaning them.
That's true.
No? Oh, well, yeah, actually.
I don't care about killing
What's
kids.
this button? Oh, I can't place it.
He said that so deadpan. I love it.
Wait?
Thank you.
Stop
Ray
making
canonically
out.
orphanizes people.
My brother sent me a meme that just says Sherlock Homo.
I love Sherlock.
It's with a Danganronpa character though.
That makes me so much less enthusiastic.
Yeah, because we played all the Danganronpa games together as a family.
August, can you set me back
And
to
let's
survival,
just say
please?
this
I want to-
character we dubbed Piss Locker Boy. Because
Hey, well,
he
what?
got a locker, so...
I see. Kill the children. Let's
If you say so.
Give me your flesh to nom on, please.
August.
What?
I didn't even drop flash.
I asked you what. You didn't answer me.
Yeah, I have to go. Can I have survival, please, August? Oh, fuck. August, Captain Arby?
August Captain Arby has
Start
left
watching
us.
me by again.
August Captain Arby
Bubba's!
hates us.
My boyfriend just entered the chat.
That's gay.
Everyone say hi. It is. Everyone say hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Hi, Jack. Say it like you're in an AA meeting.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi,
Jack.
Jack.
There you go. Good
Why
job.
do I have so many swords?
Hi, Bubba's.
Oh.
Okay.
'Cause you made the
It
mistake of
is
standing near the
definitely
button.
gay. I had to take a second to realize who was
I
talking.
stood far away from the button.
Oh no, you can never stand far enough away from the button. Not when 8's nearby.
Huh?
How am I so
What did I do?
lost?
The button.
Yeah.
And don't say you
Multiple
didn't. We all know you
Hold
did.
Still.
I'm going to leave now.
I didn't
Good
do
night,
anything.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye,
I'm
Funny.
so dizzy.
Bye.
Bye, Funny.
Who the fuck just went?
Because it got silently quieter.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, no,
It's
Ray.
game time.
Why are there so many cows?
You missed a good cow strike.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Definitely.
Uh-oh.
Fuck me.
Uh-oh.
And here lies rotators.
At this point, I just don't know how to get out.
My condoles.
Right.
Oh, it's raining.
Oh, it's raining. Runs and picks up the umbrella.
Is that not what you do when it's raining?
I've never held an umbrella.
You are so naturally funny that it absolutely fucking kills me.
I agree. It makes me want to be a better person.
I want to make people become worse people.
That's what I meant.
Stand
Good.
up real quick,
I'm
Blitz.
slaughtering children in
Yeah,
your
we're
name.
under the same umbrella, even though we're holding 2 different umbrellas.
Kill these
They're-
people.
Doing
What?
bestie things. Grr.
Uh,
Ew.
Yeah, I've decided I want to ally with Blitz now because Blitz is chill.
Blitz.
Dude, I fucking love
Mushroom.
Blitz. Blitz is amazing.
Do you have mushrooms in your biome?
Oh,
I
God.
think you do.
I don't think Blitz actually does. They're just
No, I think Blitz does because they're the small shrooms. That goes like.
Stop talking about shrooms.
I both like this. I both like this and also hate it at the same
I
time.
hate ASMR with such a burning passion.
I do too. I'm just leaning
so
into my mic and whispering.
I like the mouth popping type noise, but I also hate it.
Blitz, why the fuck do you have so many swords?
The
on you?
like
What the fuck's a
the
sword?
Yeah, mama.
the like what's it called? The crisp sound of people's voices I like.
I hate that. Oh, wait.
Bitch.
Like people in a good mic, that type of sound.
Oh, yeah.
But
I have
that type of
no
thing.
idea how well this mic is. But
You
I can
sound
hold
like
it real
whispering.
close to my face. This is my natural resting voice.
Mm-mm.
When I'm not being an autistic dumbass who's hyper excited about things, this is how I talk. This is just how I talk normally.
This is how I talk.
Unless I'm
normally.
projecting.
No.
Everyone in my family is like quiet but loud. Ah, refreshing.
Oh, we're back at the mode.
I like how we had to get rid of. Oh, there's another sword in my inventory. We had to fully get rid of the button. All of us going to the cactus.
Thank you, funny.
Let's stop.
Thank you for the raid. Oh. Oh.
Who the fuck?
Oh.
Oh,
Who fucked up
be
this
right back.
house
I need
like
to do medical shit. Please do not kill me.
Good luck, big
Oh, yeah,
meds.
medical shit. I didn't take my pills today.
Ooh, that's not good.
Take your pills.
Wait, fuck! I also forgot to take one of mine.
Hey,
Uh-oh. I forgot my vitamin D.
I forgot my
have to be back again.
What?
vitamin.
8, please.
I was trying to say that.
What is up with your mic?
What did I do?
What did you do?
It's getting very. What's the word?
Am I
Gay.
too 8? Too much 8?
It's getting.
Less than the 8?
It's getting very 10-year-old COD player.
That's so perfect. That's so true.
I wish I could be a 10-year-old.
I wanted to explain it so that you would understand what exactly was going on.
Yeah.
8, no!
Flowing through me. Men.
How is you one hit kill? My goodness. have the
You're like a
ultimate
pinata!
I have the ultimate.
Oh, Blitz, do you have another portal? Oh, I need to make you another portal.
I want to
I
draw
have-
Blitz for fun.
Draw all of
Yes.
us.
Yes!
I will murder you again!
So, Blitz,
listen.
if you follow me home
There's like
after
a
this
7%
event, I
chance
can get you
ever
stuff to
draw.
set up
I have
another
a
portal.
problem.
Because you won't have to mine anything for it.
Can you
Is it like a
draw
you don't feel like
August
it
and I
thing?
making out?
Yeah. I'm
You
not telling you
they
what
still have to
do.
finish the one of us falling.
Wait, yeah, that one.
That's
That
been
one.
in the works, and I just haven't been drawing because I'm really cool.
I need to do an art stream soon.
I don't know how to draw.
Just do a bunch of art for like.
Me neither.
My mind.
Me too.
Excuse me.
I go.
Me too, neither.
I'm gonna make fan art of me and Blitz, but Blitz as a fox and me as a dog.
Fan art, but we're doing it in the butt.
What? Whoa!
That's some draw-free suggestion right there. Oh, you two are sharing an umbrella. Did you know in Japan, if instead of doing like the heart with initials, they do an umbrella with initials?
Why?
To put your.
I don't fucking know. They share an umbrella. It's cute.
Hey, please tell me you got a
Oh, now
screenshot
I'm
of this.
burning again.
Thank you.
What happened to my umbrella?
Your mom.
There it is. It exploded very far away.
Oops, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry, I started just spamming my F2 button for fun.
I love buttons.
Me too.
Me too.
I wish I was
So,
able to
are we
place
gonna
mine.
do Blitz's hide and
Never.
seek? Hide and seek, so Blitz gets a turn?
Yeah, if we still want to.
Yeah, because Blitz is the
Why
one
are
who
you?
hasn't done a
Why
turn.
are you like this?
I'm advocating.
Family. Look at our family.
Not you.
Yeah.
Look at our family.
What?
Look. No, August.
Sorry.
Get back over here so I can take
You
a
don't
fucking
wanna?
screenshot. I forgot which button. Okay, I got it. Wait, you should hold the umbrella because I'm too short.
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, make the
Here,
tall
I can
one
hold
do
it.
Hold
on.
You're the.
Oh.
No, fuck. Wait, fuck.
Whoa, what was that noise?
August. Pick up
Me
the
dying.
fucking.
I'm trying.
Pick up the goddamn umbrella!
Ow. Blitz has the umbrella.
I got it.
Okay, let's try this again. Sun, get under the umbrella. Get closer. Get closer. Okay. Crouch. 8. Perfect.
I also got one from my.
Yay! Okay, perfect. Now get the fuck away from me.
The immediate hatred. It's like the royals taking a family portrait.
Yeah.
Literally.
I hate these people. I love buttons though.
Yeah, I think I'm finally back. For real.
Woo! Oh, that's what we've been waiting for. Oh.
Yeah, I forgot to be honest.
Dang. It had been so long.
It's been so long.
I love the one screening from Levi where I was
song's
just.
on my stream playlist. It's not. It's DMCA free.
Woo.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna play that on repeat for 7
You know what?
hours.
Isn't DMCA free? Me.
That's true.
I'm copyright striking myself.
There is a umbrella on the floor.
I just threw it.
Not mine.
I didn't want it.
It's mine
They're
now.
all yours eventually.
Dual wielding umbrellas. Hell yeah.
Whoa.
What?
Wee
Well-
wee. I need to make an ender chest for my base. But that requires like killing an enderman and getting blaze rods and all that sort of shit, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I think I have some blaze powder. I just don't have any ender pearls.
I have ender pearls, I just don't have blaze powder.
None of the above.
Let's see.
I could get ender pearls
Ich bin
actually.
in
Benign.
Upper Ak in.
I've
You can't
been
see it, but I sort of
so
tilt my head like a
fucked,
dog
I
when I'm
don't
reading
know.
foreign languages.
German.
Or just do a
Why
full
did you
head
do
tilt.
that?
Oh, I didn't notice you chatting in Streamblitz. I'm sorry. I had my Discord open. I thought that was German. Looks a lot like German.
That was German. Was it
Okay.
not?
No. It looks like Dutch.
Deutsch is yeah.
Deutschland.
Yeah.
I'm a little stupid. It's okay.
I don't know any languages ever.
Can people stop punching me, please? I'm just
Why the
trying to
fuck
eat
do
my
I have a
pizza.
ladder?
Peace.
I can't place this because I'm in adventure mode.
I can. I'm not in adventure mode.
Sem no mi habla español.
I know a kid with that
Español.
Yo hablo un
Poquito.
poquito.
Poquito. I only
You
know
speak
Spanish
bad
because I live in
Spanish?
Arizona. Well, I've lived in Arizona and Nevada like all my life, so I know Spanish because of that.
Not if
I
can
failed
handle-
Spanish 1 and passed Spanish 2 by cheating.
I can't spell poquito to save my life.
Poquito.
I know what it means, I
is
just can't spell it.
P-O-Q-U-I-T-O.
Hablo en un poco porque la escuela. My speaking.
I hikey wish there was like a QSMP for smaller creators, just so I could like learn, just so I could like learn Spanish in like a real setting.
Has anyone seen
Your friend
Bill's house
is
on QSMP?
Sadly, I just saw it.
I don't know if
friend is
I just was.
What'd you say?
Phil's house.
Mexican.
I have not seen
Yeah,
Phil's
I
house.
saw it.
I haven't like actively been watching it. I've been watching clips.
If you
So he
just
lives on
talk to
top of
me
the
in
big wall.
Spanish, if you just talk to me in Spanish,
And he
I'm
has
just gonna stare
polished
at you.
andesite walls, polished andesite floor, oak door, oak back door, oak fences as windows, and a dirt roof.
Oh my
Me
god.
too.
And this is the man who does massive builds in his hardcore world.
Hey, remember, if
Oh
you
my
want to
God.
say you're embarrassed in Spanish,
All I've seen as
Just
far as
say-
like builds is that Foolish is going all out.
Yeah.
Foolish
Foolish
always goes all out. Have you
Yeah,
seen
true.
his Dream SMP builds?
True.
Y'all have seen my build. Most of y'all have seen my builds for this server, and no, I did not go all out. But Queen's seen my build in the modded SMP, and that shit be fire. Compared to this. I want to stream modded SMP. Yeah.
I high-key want to do a modded SMP again. I just don't have the money to run a server, another one.
You know, I've been playing a lot on Scarlet's, but I can't stream it. My OBS shits itself when I try to.
Mm.
Mi español es más o menos no lo hablo mucho. That's what Scoot says. I don't. Nada más de repente. I don't fucking know.
Scoot says his Spanish is so-so. He doesn't speak much.
Yeah, I know that. I can get context clues with a lot of Spanish, so I kind of know what they're saying, but I never have the exact.
Yeah, that's the
words.
same with me. I am half Puerto Rican, but my mother refused to teach me Spanish because apparently I was getting confused with the English and the Spanish around. So she just never taught me Spanish.
Mucho más en la casa por
There's only like
mi
3 words
mi
you have to
padre.
know in
De
Spanish
la
anyway.
casa manza.
Pendejo.
Casa de las Américas.
Like I said, I only know Spanish because I grew up in like Arizona and Nevada. My Spanish isn't fucking But I know more sign than I do Spanish. I know the entire sign language alphabet and like some few basic words.
Sign.
Sign language I know the best because I'm shit at learning languages later in life, but I learned sign, like most of the major signs I know, when I was real little from my mom.
I know, Blitz. I'm a little confused. I'm just trying to follow along.
Yeah, I was sitting here squinting at it like, what?
Okay, so sacapuntas. Sacapuntas is Wilbur's favorite word. Favorite Spanish word.
Translate.
And it means pencil sharpener. Oh, I'm still on the BRB screen. So he's named his house on the QSMP Casa de las Sacapuntas. Can you put please?
Los cangrejos. You have to be very careful. You type it in Spanish, Scoop, because I will just repeat it all on stream, and I may say something stupid because of you.
Ooh, good. I'm gonna type stuff for you to say out loud now.
I do know at least some
you read
curse
earlier
Hey, Evac, how's it going?
my friend was a dirty Mexican,
Welcome in.
So
yeah, yeah.
It's okay. He'd let me say that.
Yeah, I feel like jokes like that are okay as long as the friend okays it. Like that kind
10 times first.
that kind of comedy is like okayed by the friend, you know.
Another funny
Blitz, watch out!
QSMP moment was when so Wilbur sent his entire game to Spanish.
Yeah, beat him up. Beat him up. Kick his ass. Get him.
So he was
Your social security number is 1, 2, 3.
Security numbers have like.
He was saying bastard.
He was saying carbon, which is the word for coal. But Quackity told him to say cabron, which is the word for bastard or dumbass.
11.
Yep.
Oh, I saw that bit. I saw that.
Does anyone else in here know any French?
I picked up a bit from my friend, and I know any words that sound the same.
I know the words I am in French, and that's about it.
Okay. This is my favorite phrase to say in French to people who know any French. J'ai mangé petit enfant.
The silence.
What?
You have a little dick?
No, j'ai mangé petit enfant.
It sounds like petite in front. So either you have you're flat chested.
Crabs.
Enfant.
Elephant.
Nope. I eat little children or little babies.
Oh!
Yeah,
Don't
I
do
learned
that.
from Duolingo and it's stuck with me ever since.
Yeah, Duolingo.
Why would Duolingo teach you?
No, Duolingo puts random words together so you can
No.
learn them.
Yeah, to be
So
fair,
they have the
Duolingo taught
weirdest
me
sentences.
actually. The actual sentence I learned from Duolingo was "J'ai mangé petit pomme" or "J'ai mangé pomme rouge," which is I eat a little apple or I eat apple red / I eat red apple. But then I also learned enfant, and I just kind of combined it.
Yeah, mine might as well. My favorite phrase to use when people ask me like,
I'm good, but thank you, Evac.
because I know like a little bit of Japanese, and like people always want to hear stuff, and like I'm like, why would I want to tell them the boring stuff? So I always tell them, "Mitochondria wa saibou no gendori okuda."
Motherfucker. Bitch.
Now translate.
I do not know a lot of Japanese words.
Bitch.
That means the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Bitch. Bitch.
Makes sense.
Because what else would you want to know in
Bitch.
Japanese?
Bitch.
What I often say in my family, because they know a little bit of Japanese, anytime I'm really confused about what's going on, I just go up to them and go, "Nan desu ka?" "Nan desu ka?" Because "nan desu ka" is kind of like a...
Of course, thank you for
"What's
being
going
polite about
on?
it.
What's happening?"
Yeah, I'm already starving.
But my favorite fun fact to tell is when you count, you should use yon for 4, because otherwise
four
it's
is death,
death. Because it's ichi, san, shi, ko. And shi is also death.
What's
Give me the fence.
I mean, the numbers are
give me the
different for
ladder,
like
I'll put it
every
back.
fucking thing you count in Japanese, anyways.
Because April is still she something. But yeah, But like, that's why it's like Shinigami. It's death demon or something like that. Nogami, yeah. Death god or death demon,
I'm making
depending
my
on the
pretty
translation.
flowers.
Whoa.
Pretty flowers.
But
Wait, what is your origin that you do that?
Florin, I'm a plant.
Oh,
I'm
you
a
are
plant
yeah,
human.
like a tree.
I photosynthesize and can grow things with my fist.
That's so cute.
Hey, these are the
And
flowers
can
native to
only
my
drink
area.
honey.
Are we in a plains?
Yes,
Yeah.
We're in the sunflower plains. I knew we were in a plains.
However, I can't naturally grow sunflowers because sunflowers don't naturally grow with bone meal.
Yep. Well, actually,
where did these
they
llamas
don't naturally
come
grow from grass with bone meal. They do grow with bone meal from later.
Oh, then this one liked me. I tamed this one. I don't have a saddle though, and we are 800 blocks away from my place.
My saddles are all at home.
I'm surprised no wandering traders have spawned.
I know, right? I think I gotta log off now.
I need to show Blitz to my place. Blitz. Seems like a lot of people are logging off.
Yeah, I'm just gonna log off here. I don't really care. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Wee. Horseback riding as a child. Your horse is still somewhere around here. There he is.
Yeah, he's doing his own thing.
I'm grabbing my stuff as well.
My brain loves this.
Time to go for a ride. Whee! Oh yeah, I could probably drop you guys off, huh? You guys live, hold on.
That way.
This place, park this place. It's just a bit
It's southwest.
Okay, way.
Southwest is where I am at the very least.
Wee. What a way to ride home.
Now, to make sure they don't die, you should probably drop us in the water at spawn.
Yeah. Yippee!
Why is this oddly fun?
Megalovania starts playing. Quite literally, it started playing. I'm like, what the hell?
August, when we get dropped off, can I have survival again?
Yeah.
Yay.
Stuck in a
Oh shit, I didn't realize Blitz was still on.
Boing.
Boing. Boing.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, the lead broke.
Bye, August. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm still in the thing.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Oh, get on shore. I don't think I have a saddle, unfortunately.
Yippee. Goodbye, Blitz.
I don't want to name it powder. Like powdered snow.
That's awesome.
Go see if I have a lead or a saddle.
Alright. Hi, cool. Hi. Alright, let's head home. Oh. He's pushing the guy. The man. Alright, we're gonna head home. We're gonna name these two. As in, we're gonna name the cat, we're gonna name the horse. I didn't even get to show you guys my horse, by the way. They're caravanning. But yeah, I'll show you guys my horse. And we'll hop off for the night. I know that this was kind of chaotic and everything, but that was sort of the point. It was just for all of us to be able to unwind, have a good time together, and sort of get to do a little bit of, you know, whatever we felt like tonight, just because it's been a hot minute since we all got to hang out, and have a good time on the server together. So this was fun. It was nice to be able to all hang out. So I'm hoping we can do more of this. I know we're going to do a summer solstice event. We're going to do the like autumnal equinox. Go through? Yeah, I think you went through. We're gonna do the autumnal equinox. All that good shit. So that's why I mentioned before to Ray, because Ray wants to host that equinox. If we're still doing the server at that time, I mentioned that Ray can potentially do like a murder mystery thing, because I thought that would be cool. Look at you, you're so cute. Okay. I should have, yes. Okay. So I have 3 levels. Perfect. Pussy. Alright. Beautiful. I love you. Alright. So now we have Pussy home. Let's put away that. I left all of my, like, weapons home because I didn't want to lose any of it. I didn't realize that I left my armor on when I went to go, but this is the horse, by the way. Ray, like, right before we all left, Ray, right before we all left to go to spawn, asked if anyone wanted a horse, and I said yes. So I went and grabbed a horse from Ray's house. I've been looking for a horse for a long-ass time, or I've been wanting a horse for a long-ass time from Ray, and this was just perfect opportunity. So I'm probably gonna grab another horse from Ray and breed them and hope to get a nice horse with some good shit, but we'll see. But for now we have this one. Hello. But yeah. So, good shit, good shit. So I think that'll be it for tonight. That was 4 hours of chaos. I didn't expect us to do all of that on the server. I expected us to go fairly quickly. Hello? What you doing here, Queen?
How's your thingy? Your llama.
My llama! My llama bumma buna. Hello.
You have a fence post?
Here, you can just chuck him in with my horse. Move. You gotta make room, dude. It's big enough for the both of you. No, stop that. He's pissed that he has to share a house. Look at him! He's bullying him into a corner, motherfucker! He's such a bully.
This one, I had the other two tied to a fence post at my place, and this one, he broke the lead a couple times because he was trying to go to the other two who were leading.
Goodbye. Alright. Awesome. So we have our llama and we have our horse. I have to name the llama for sure. I don't know if I want to name the horse yet, actually. Just because I might end up breeding the horse and then getting rid of it in favor of a better horse. But let's think of a good name for the llama. Ooh, I know. Patooey. Oh, I broke it. I was like, what the fuck? Alright. There. Patooey. Can I get him from here? No. There. Cool. But yeah, that'll be it for on the server tonight. 4 hours of absolute chaos and anarchy. I didn't expect us to be on the server the entire time tonight.